Hi guys, it's me Charles HD and welcome to race day for the 2019 Singapore Grand Prix, and I cannot wait for this race today because we have so many good drivers at the front of the field in different cars, and just that, they all have different race pace compared to one another, and I think we are going to have a very tough physically and mental race for all the drivers, and it really is going to be a good battle for the race victory between, I think, definitely the top four. That's Charles Leclerc, Lewis Hamilton, Sebastian Vettel and Max Verstappen. And to be honest, I think the entire top six can contend for a podium. And who knows, if we get a 2017-like start, maybe a midfield car on the podium. But we are in, maybe not for the best race of the season or a race with lots of overtakes, but we are in for a race that is going to be competitive, because I think Ferrari, as we'll get onto later, even though they got pole position, they might not have the quickest car to actually end up dominantly winning this Grand Prix. But hopefully you guys who are watching right now, hopefully you're all doing well no matter what time zone it is in your part of the world. And hopefully with me and also Nib, who will join us later on, hopefully you will enjoy the 2019 Singapore Grand Prix with us today. But before we get into the teams and how I think they will do, let's first get into the results of qualifying in case you missed them. So, in qualifying, Charles Leclerc took probably the most surprising pole position of 2019, from Lewis Hamilton second, Vettel third, Verstappen fourth, Bottas fifth, Albon sixth, and then it was Sainz, Ricciardo, Hülkenberg, Norris completing the top 10. I'll get to Ricciardo in a moment. And Perez was P11, but I'll get to Perez in a moment. Giovinazzi 12th, Gasly 13th, Raikkonen 14th, Magnussen 15th, and then Kvyat, Stroll, Grosjean, Russell, and Kubica. Now, two pieces of news to do with the grid. One, Daniel Ricciardo was disqualified from qualifying for a MGUK power limit, or exceeding the power limit, because he went over, according to Renault, a curve that made him exceed it by, I think, 0.0001 of a microsecond, something like that. Very, very small, put it that way. And that has meant that Daniel Ricciardo was disqualified from qualifying, and he will start at the back of the grid. He will not be starting from the pit lane, though. He is taking on a new, I believe, MGUK and control electronics, but he's not starting from the pit lane. He will be starting from 20th place. And I forgot to mention this yesterday. Sergio Perez, after hitting the wall in practice 3, does indeed have a 5-place grid penalty. So Sergio Perez will take a 5-place penalty, meaning that because of Ricciardo and Perez dropping back, Giovinazzi will start in P10, Hülkenberg will be P8, Norris will be P9, and then you've got Gasly in P11, Raikkonen will be P12, then Magnussen in 13th, I believe, and then Kvyat, Perez, Stroll, Grosjean, Russell, Kubica, Ricciardo. I believe that is what the grid will be for this Singapore Grand Prix. But now, let's get into the teams and how I think they will do today in Singapore. First up, Mercedes. They will be, again, as I said yesterday, Mercedes will be disappointed not to get pole position, because I think coming to this race, they were not even hoping for it. I think they were expecting to get pole position at this track. And of course, pole at Singapore is so, so important. So they would have been disappointed. But we know that their car, when it comes to the races, is a lot faster than the Ferrari, of course, that is on pole position. So if Lewis can get into the lead on the first lap and maintain the lead and try and defend from Ferrari's unbelievable straight line speed, then Lewis Hamilton will walk away with the race. But if he doesn't get into the lead and stays in P2, he isn't necessarily completely out of the race, because of course we still need to get to the pit stops, and you never know what could happen. He might be able to jump Charles Leclerc. But it's going to be very hard for him to pass, even though he will have a faster car, I think, today in this race. So it's going to have to require, say, a couple moments in this race going really well for Mercedes and Lewis Hamilton for them to go on and win the Grand Prix. And from their point of view, they are, of course, hoping for that. For Valtteri Bottas, of course, his qualifying was very disappointing. He starts in P5. if Valtteri can maybe gain a position at the start, but if he maintains P5, I think he absolutely does have an opportunity to finish on the podium. But again, he needs things to go right for him. He needs, you know, the pit stops to go right, him to get the right undercut or overcut or get a clear track, get a good start. So if Mercedes, you know, things go right for them, I think they can definitely get a good result. But if they don't go right for them, then they are going to be under threat from cars behind, such as, you know, Vettel, Verstappen, and even maybe Alexander Albon. Next up is Ferrari. Of course, pole position. Who expected that? Honestly, let me know in the chat. Did any of you honestly expect Ferrari to get pole position? I don't think any of you did. I don't think there is anyone out there that expected Ferrari to get pole position and be first and third on the grid for this race after the Hungarian Grand Prix and even Monaco earlier this year. So, great performance, and I think the upgrades have worked. I think confirmation of that would be if Ferrari won the race. I think that would absolutely confirm that the new update to the nose cone and the floor of the Ferrari has worked, and hopefully from their point of view they can get that confirmation today. But again, because they don't have a quick car when it comes to the race pace or the races, it's not going to be easy today. It will not be easy. If they are not, you know, absolutely on their game today, Ferrari, then the race will absolutely work itself away from them, because it is going to be very close between, you know, Leclerc, Hamilton, Verstappen, and maybe even Bottas and Albon. So they've really got to, Ferrari, they've got to make sure that they get everything right today, because it's going to be one of those races where they're going to have to get, say, the start and the pit stops absolutely bang on if they're going to get the race victory. One thing I will say, though, is if Ferrari have a 1-2 at the end of the first lap, then it's guaranteed basically Ferrari are going to win, because that second Ferrari, whoever that second Ferrari may be, will hold back the rest of the field to the point where the other Ferrari can then start to build a bit of a lead and have a safer gap to the rest of the drivers. So if Ferrari do have a 1-2 at the end of the first lap, I think we can basically say Ferrari have won the race. But of course, who knows what could happen at the start? Plenty of crazy things have happened at the start in Singapore. Just look at 2017, especially for Ferrari. But if they can win this Grand Prix, then that is a massive game changer, not only for the rest of 2019, but going into 2020, because as we've talked about in 2019, Ferrari have lacked downforce on the front of the car, and really all around they've just not had a car that downforce-wise is quite good enough. But now, it looks as though Ferrari have not entirely, but mostly solved those issues. So it'd be a big, big statement if Ferrari could win the Singapore Grand Prix. And if Charles Leclerc does win the race today, then he'll be the third driver in history who, after their first win, took 2 more wins after that, making it 3 consecutive victories. The other 2 were Damon Hill and Mika Hakkinen. So if Charles Leclerc does win today, he'll be the third driver to do what those 2 others did. But yeah, Ferrari is going to be interesting to see what they can do today. And the next top team, of course, is Red Bull. Their qualifying was very disappointing. Max Verstappen even come out and said that it was disappointing and that they are just, quote, slow. And that's quite an admission from Max Verstappen. And yeah, in qualifying, they just didn't quite have the pace that we were expecting them to have. Their car did not look quite as good as it should have done in qualifying, when of course it mattered most. But of course, today is the race, and we know with Red Bull and Max Verstappen that anything can happen, and that Max Verstappen can still contend for the victory if, say, the race pace is really strong and they can be very close around the pit stop phases. So Max is not completely out of it, but it's a really tough task for him to win from there. I think, honestly, he won't win the race. But he can definitely get a podium, no doubt about that. I think, to be honest, Max is probably going to have one of the fastest cars today. But again, at Singapore, because of how hard it is to overtake, it's going to be hard for him to be able to use that pace to be able to get into a podium position, or maybe even higher than that. So it will be difficult for him to go for the race victory, but podium he can go for. Alex Albon, of course, starting P6. I think he was also disappointed with how he did, because he was too far off his teammate Max Verstappen. And considering how Bottas did, I think Albon should have put it in P5, but he did not, of course. And for Albon, considering that this weekend he has been quite a bit off his teammate Max Verstappen and is just this weekend, I think, struggling. All I think he needs to do really is get away fine in at least P6 and just let the race, if he can, try and come to him, because again, he is in a car that is going to be very quick in terms of race pace. So if he just relaxes, lets the race, settle down, and he settles down, then he might be able to contend later on once the Red Bull really starts working. So hopefully he can do that. But for Red Bull today, it's going to be a tough race. If they can make overtakes happen today, then that'd be a big plus for them. But it's going to be a tough race, no doubt about that whatsoever. But before we get into the midfield, guys, let me know right now in the live chat, for the top teams, what do you expect from them today in terms of pace? For Mercedes, do you think they can win? For Ferrari, what do they need to do, in your opinion, to win? And what can Red Bull do from a disappointing P4 and P6 on the grid? Let me know in the live chat, and I'll make sure to read out your comments in just a moment. Just want to say, though, again, as I usually say, don't forget to subscribe for more content like this, as we consistently do watch-alongs for every F1 race weekend, for practice 2, qualifying, and the race itself. So don't forget to subscribe for that. Bottom right of the screen, you can do it right there, or go to my homepage, subscribe and hit the notifications bell, and also don't forget to hit the like button, as it really does help out the channel and shows me that you do enjoy the content. But I think, before I come to you guys, because my throat is of course sore, as it usually is, the world would be ending if it wasn't sore, I'm going to have a quick drink, and then I'll come to you guys in a moment. Right. So let's see what you guys are saying. Hornblower. That's an interesting name. By the way, hello, Mr. Random Guy. Hornblower says, to win, Vettel needs to at least overtake Hamilton at the start. True. If Sebastian Vettel is going to contend for the victory, he has to be at least P2 at the end of the first lap. If he's still P3, then he is probably going to be fighting for a podium today instead of race victory, because he's not in a car that is able to progress from their grid position compared to how they do in qualifying, because the Ferrari is at its best in qualifying. So yeah, the start for Vettel is very crucial if he is to win the race, but I think him winning the race in P3, it's going to need a bit of luck also. I think maybe some reliability issues for his teammate Lewis Hamilton wouldn't, would definitely help Sebastian Vettel win the race if he was to. Aditya says the midfield guys on softs will struggle, so those starting mediums should have an upper hand. Last year was a clear example. Yeah, that is true. And all of the top 10, except for Antonio Giovinazzi on the grid, is starting on the soft tyres. Antonio Giovinazzi, of course, qualified outside the top 10, so he can start on whatever compound of tyre he wants to, and he will start on probably the medium compound, so he can be competitive later on, and hopefully, as we'll get to Alfa later on, he can use that tyre well. But the soft tyre is not the tyre you want to be on today. It's not the tyre you want to be on. Maybe if there's a safety car later on, say lap 45-ish, maybe then you can put on a soft compound tyre and go for it if you've got nothing to lose. But if we don't get a safety car that late on. We will get a safety car at some point today because we've had a safety car every time at Singapore. But if it doesn't come late on, then you're not going to want to use a soft tyre because a soft tyre around this circuit is a terrible tyre. And you're going to want to use either the medium or the hard compound. Right, let me look at some other comments here. Francisco, are we thinking this will be a one-stop race even for the soft starters? Well, I'll get onto that later on, but in short, yes, I think it will be a one-stop race because it's a street race, and at street tracks you cannot afford to do more pit stops because you need clean air. You do desperately need clean, fresh air in front of you to make a strategy where you pit more than other people work. If you have traffic, it won't work. Look at Monaco, for example. There were people in Monaco who were maybe not pitting more times than other people, but they were pitting too early and then getting held up in traffic whilst other people who were on tyres that were not as good built a gap in clean air. So it's all about, again, similar to Monaco, it's about clean air and getting the laps in and getting the lap times in. Even if you're not on the the best tyres, as long as you're in clean air, you should be fine around this track. Right, let me read out a couple more comments from you guys, you wonderful people. JB has brought up actually a very interesting point. And I'm not sure. He says, because Ricciardo was disqualified from qualifying, does that mean he can start on any tyre? Also, now that Perez qualifies P10, does he start the same tyre he set his lap in Q3? That confuses me. I think Perez is allowed to start on the tyre he wants to. I'm pretty sure he does. And if that is the case, then Ricciardo should have to start on the soft tyre, but I'm honestly not sure. It's so confusing to the point where I think one of the teams might actually be guaranteed to get a penalty for that because it is confusing. Does Perez start on the soft or does Ricciardo start on the soft? I don't know. I don't know how that works. I don't know if there's a cut-off point for that. In terms of you have to make a decision as to the grid within a certain time for tyre allocations to count in a certain way. I honestly don't know how it works. I do know that if you qualify in the top 10 and you take a grid penalty, not a disqualification, but a grid penalty, that you have to start on the compound you qualified inside the top 10 on. But Ricciardo was disqualified from qualifying, so I don't know. I don't know how it works. We'll see. We'll see. One of them will probably get a penalty because we're all confused as to what that rule actually means. And Nib is saying, yeah, Ricciardo can start on whatever tyres. Yeah, I think it's because he was disqualified from qualifying, so what he did in the history books will not actually matter. And mostly F1 fans says Giovinazzi will start on whichever tyre he wants because he wasn't classified in Q3. Absolutely. But let's now, talking of the midfield runners, let's get into them. First up, Renault. And yeah, Daniel Ricciardo disqualified from qualifying for a very small infraction, but the rules are the rules. You've got to apply them. If you don't apply them, then there's no point having them. So they had to apply that rule, and he, I think, deservedly got the penalty. Not in terms of his own driving, but, the team did. And he will start from the back. Ricciardo can finish in the points, but it's going to be tough. It's going to be a long, hard race for him, especially behind cars that are going to be a lot slower. For example, the Haas's. The Haas's in a straight line are very quick. If Ricciardo can't clear them, then he is going to be stuck behind for so long to the point where they're going to be miles off points. So it's going to be a long, tough race. Ricciardo can get points, but he does need, certain things to go his way in this Grand Prix. Nico Hülkenberg, though, of course, with Ricciardo's penalty, starts from P8. Hülkenberg's race record at Singapore is not that good. It's not as good as it say has been for him in qualifying at this circuit. So don't expect Nico to be great today. I don't think Nico is going to put in a great performance, but as long as he can be, say, in the top 9, I think that's a good result, because I still think with, say, Lando Norris behind him, I still think McLaren have the clearly better car this weekend. So I think, as long as he can be in the top 9, considering, where his teammate is and how the car is this weekend, and there's no, retirements ahead, I think that would be a fine result, and I think that'd be a good result for him. But Renault, with that exclusion for Ricciardo from qualifying, it really does hamper, again, their chances of 4th in the Constructors, because if McLaren finish where they've started and Ricciardo does not get into the top 10, then they've outscored Renault again, unless Hülkenberg somehow finishes 5th or something. So, yeah, going to be tough for Renault, but hopefully they stick in there and try and get a good enough result for them. But just want to say, actually, this is a very sad topic, but I just want to bring this up. Of course, I talked about Juan Manuel Correa's improved condition yesterday, and hopefully he gets well soon. But of course, the other person in that accident who was sadly took away from us, Antoine Hubert. It would have been today his 23rd birthday. It is the 22nd of September, of course, today, and that is Antoine Hubert's birthday. So, again, we're all still thinking about him. I still think about him. Anytime I think about that, Spa race, or I, play on the F1 game on that circuit, he constantly comes up in my mind because it's still such a sore subject, and I'm sure it is for everyone on the chat and everyone in the entire motorsport family that we're in. So again, rest in peace to Antoine, and yeah, we definitely miss you, mate. But now let's go on to McLaren. And McLaren, yeah, they do have, I think, the best midfield car. Carlos Sainz is looking great this weekend. I think as long as Carlos has a good start, I think he's guaranteed, basically, to be at the front of the midfield for the entire race, because he's so good at this track. Lando Norris, though, was very, very frustrated after qualifying, because he ended up behind the two Renaults in qualifying, and he said that he messed up with, I think, gear changes. He wasn't changing gear early enough, and it was actually slowing him down at points. So he basically had a lack of concentration, on his lap. So that affected what he did, and yeah, that resulted in why he is starting behind a Renault. But as long as Lando can get ahead of Hülkenberg somehow, I think he and Carlos Sainz will, not massively, but they should comfortably finish at the front of the midfield. Their car is the best in the midfield this weekend. And the two drivers, I think, once they're both at it, they're very well suited to this Singapore circuit. And hopefully they're in for another great race today. But yeah, McLaren, as long as they can outscore Renault today, then that's a good result. That's all that matters, outscoring Renault, because as soon as they confirm 4th in the Constructors, then they can, relax for the rest of the season. And I don't think that's far away, that point, where they can really confirm that position in the Constructors. Next up is Alfa Romeo. Qualifying was not as bad as I thought it would be after practice. They looked like an absolute slug. But yeah, qualifying not too bad, considering that this is not a historically good track for the Alphas, or when they were Sauber or BMW. But I think for the race, they're kind of a dark horse, to be honest, because again, Antonio Giovinazzi starts inside the top 10 and gets to start on whatever tyre he wants to, and that's going to be probably the medium compound of tyre, the one you can see on the screen with Kimi Räikkönen. So if Antonio can, and I know it's been difficult for him in 2019, if he can look after the tyres, but also get, enough grip out the tyres to help him against the soft tyre runners, then I think Antonio is in for a points finish, and that is what Alfa Romeo desperately need. Alfa Romeo today have to finish in the points. No doubt about it whatsoever. If they don't finish in the points today, then, you know, 5th in the Constructors, which I think should have been, and I think it was their aim for 2019, will continue to slip away, and it'll just make this season worse than it actually has been in terms of the speed of the cars. So Alfa, they've got to get in the top 10 today. It really is critical now. It's getting to that very important final, you know, part of the season. They've got to start scoring points consistently if they are going to beat teams like Racing Point and Toro Rosso in the Constructors' Championship. Next up is Haas. Yeah, Haas are going to be terrible. They're totally useless around this circuit. If they only get lapped once, that'd be an achievement. And they should cry probably tears of joy if that happens. They only get lapped once. They're probably going to get lapped twice, because if you look at qualifying, they were 3.5 seconds, I think, off pole position. Now, normally Haas, in a similar way to Ferrari, their best performance comes in qualifying. So if they're that far off in qualifying, in the race, they might be 5 seconds a lap off the pace. And if you're that far off in the race, then you're going to get lapped at least twice, maybe more. They might even end up racing the Williamses today. They are going to be horrifically bad. Next up, Toro Rosso. Also with the penalties with Perez and Ricciardo, Gasly starts P11, which is on the clean side of the grid, which is good for him. And again, he gets to start on whatever compound he wants to. So look out for Gasly. He's also a dark horse. Toro Rosso do have a good race record here in scoring points. So definitely look out for them. And I wouldn't be surprised if they actually got a point today. And if they can finish in the top 10, I think that probably would be a very good result, considering the pace of the car this weekend, and also considering the situation in the Constructors' Championship, because if they can keep, you know, nicking a couple points here and there, they might be able to stay in the top 6 or top 7 in the Constructors, a position that Toro Rosso were not expecting to be in. So yeah, if they can nick a point, I think that's a good result, but it's going to be a tough race with, you know, the Alfas, the Renaults, the McLarens, all those cars. Is going to be a real tough race for Toro Rosso. Racing Point next up. Sergio Perez, I think, does have the pace to actually finish in the points. And if he did qualify or start, you know, in P10 after Ricciardo's penalty and did not get a gearbox penalty, then I think Perez would absolutely be finishing the points today. But starting from, I think, P15, it's going to be tough. It's really going to be tough for him because, you know, there's cars ahead that are quicker in a straight line and will hold him up, even though he's faster. So, yeah, it's going to be a tough race today for Sergio Perez. And Lance Stroll is starting, I think, in 16th place or 17th place. Can't quite remember. But for Lance, he just needs to do what he normally does. Get a great start and hope that the tyres come to him later in the race on the harder compound of tyres. But if I was to say now, I don't think Racing Point will finish in the points. I think they'll go pointless today. No pun intended, of course. Mainly because they're starting from 15th and 17th. Not really because, or 15th and 16th or something like that. Again, mainly because of that. If they were starting 10th and 11th, I think they would finish in the points, but they're starting too far back, and they are good when it comes to race pace, but they're not that good. Yeah, Racing Point, I think, will struggle to score points today, but hopefully they can remain in the race and be there when it matters, maybe at the end, when tyres start to get a bit near the cliff. And last of all, of course, is the toothpaste Williams. And with Russell, even though he finished lap time-wise miles off the rest of the midfield, or the back end of the midfield, he did make a mistake, and I reckon because of the slow pace that is going to come from the Haas drivers, and considering this is a street track, I think Williams are going to be not too bad today. I wouldn't be surprised if they ended up finishing in 13th or 14th today. Mainly because, you know, if a car gets stuck behind them, unless it's a Ferrari-powered car, I don't see how they're going to pass them. And, you know, if they get a good start, again, it'll be hard to pass them. And I don't think, with Russell at least, I don't think the pace is actually that bad. So look out for Williams. They're not going to be that bad today. They're not going to score points. That would be a miracle if they did. But they're not going to be too far away. They're not going to be too far away in terms of position, not lap time. In lap time, they will be miles off. But, you know, in terms of position, I don't think they're going to actually be that far away from a points finish. But guys, let me know in the live chat for the midfield. What do you think is going to happen for Renault, McLaren, Alfa, Haas, Toro Rosso, Racing Point and Williams? And yeah, let me know what you think is going to happen. Who do you think will do well, not so well? Let me know in the chat and I'll read out your comments right now. Right, let's take a look at what you guys are having to say. Let me just take a look at the comments here. Let me just find a good one if I can. Shaman LP, Racing Point has no point racing. That's a good one. Paul saying Leclerc will win. We'll get to our predictions in, well, not that much time. Nigel Walswick, hey guys, only just found your stream. Will you be covering whole race? Thanks. Again, I'll get onto it later, but we will not be showing live footage because obviously that'll be breaking copyright law. But we are covering the race. We will be providing, say, a radio style commentary. You know, we'll have the running order on the screen, pictures. So you know, we will have stuff to keep you entertained and also to keep you up to date with all the goings on of the Singapore Grand Prix. Mostly in F1 fans says Ferrari looking for their first hat-trick of wins since 2008. I didn't know that. I did not know that. I'm trying to think. Is that true? I think it is, because I think Bahrain, I think it was actually 4 in a row in 2008, because it was Malaysia, Bahrain, Spain and Turkey. I think they won 4 in a row in 2008. So yeah, I think you're correct on that one. And if they win today, I think they can absolutely win in Russia and Suzuka, because if they can win this race, who's to say they can't win, again, those 2 races, the US Grand Prix, the Brazilian, the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, who knows? Ferrari's new upgrade, you cannot doubt, it's completely changed the perspective of racing at the front of the field, because no longer do Ferrari have as big of a deficit in the corners as they did. So it really is going to make for a much different outlook for the rest of 2019. And I think it does make the racing more exciting. Because if Mercedes and Red Bull are still strong and Ferrari are still, or if the new upgrades continue to work, then you got 3 teams fighting for the victory every race. So there you go. Right, let me look at some other comments here. Emma Dumet says, I want to see Vettel at least P2. Who wins Chazza? We'll get to those predictions in a moment from Lord Z, that was. And Prussia saying, can Seb win, please? We'll see. He does have a great record here. He has won this race 4 times. He won here in 2011, 2012, 2013 and 2015, and probably should have won in 2017 if he actually used his brain at the start, but that's back in 2017. Yeah, great record here. This is probably his best track, and he is good here, no doubt about it, but he's going to need things to go really right for him if he is going to get the victory. But now, let's get on to the tyre situation, because tyres today at Singapore are very, very important. This track kills tyres, and pitting at the right moment and being on the right tyres at the right moment is so important around this track. So important. So that is why tyres are so important. But when it comes to today's race, it is, if there's a safety car early on, there is going to be a safety car today. There is no doubt about that whatsoever. 100% record of safety cars at this race. So there will be a safety car at some point. But if the safety car is at the start, like it was last year and the year before and the year before that, then it's going to be a one-stop race. The soft tyre runners, who are starting on the softs, of course, they will go from soft tyres to hard tyres, because the hard tyre is the best tyre to be on, I think, for the race end. But if you are, starting outside the top 10, or if you qualified outside the top 10, you have a much freer choice, of course, as to what tyre you start on. I think the best strategy today is starting on the mediums, going about 25 laps on them, and then putting the hard compound on to go to the end from lap 25 to about, to the end of the race, lap 61. So I think that is the best strategy today. But if anyone, and I think we will have runners for sure, starting on the hard compound tyres, that will make those drivers very, very racy at the end of the race with other drivers in the midfield, because they'll be on fresher tyres and tyres that are, at least half a second a lap faster, even if they have the same wear or same, tyre life. So, it's going to be very interesting to see outside the top 10 who starts on what tyres, because I think we will get some hard compound tyre runners. And if the hard tyre runners do, if we do get people starting on that compound, the hard compound tyre, you can expect them to go to about lap 35, maybe lap 40, and then put the mediums on for the last 20 to 25 laps and try and get into the points. But of course, all the top 6 are starting on the soft tyre, and they will be so much quicker than the midfield. They'll build a gap to the rest of the field, and they'll be able to do a soft to hard strategy very easily. But if we do get a safety car halfway through the race, or say in the last 20 laps, you can see at the top there, Hamilton and Bottas do not have a new set of mediums. They used that in Q1 yesterday. Vettel, Leclerc, Verstappen, Albon all do. So if, as I'm expecting, Vettel, Leclerc, Verstappen, Albon go to the hard tyres around lap 15-ish, if there's a safety car between lap 30 and 40, if they have the space to do it and they have nothing to lose, I think going on to the mediums is actually going to make the race very interesting. So we will have some interesting strategy today, but it is going to really depend on when we get a safety car, which of course is inevitable, and just what happens with the tyres. Maybe certain compounds might be lasting longer than we think or expected, and certain compounds might go off quicker. We just don't know. So we will see what happens when it comes to tyres in the Grand Prix. But again, it will be a very, very important and critical part of the race today, and it will, I think, probably decide the race like it did last year in terms of who finished in what positions for the podium. Because of course Verstappen went on to the soft compound, and then Vettel went on to the ultra soft, and that's why Vettel did not beat Verstappen that day. But it is now time, guys, to get on to our predictions for the 2019 Singapore Grand Prix in Marina Bay. Right now, guys, in the chat, put your predictions for the top 10 in, and I'll read them out as much as I can, read them out before the race gets underway in 20 minutes time. So make sure to do that, and yeah, I'll make sure to read it out very, very soon. But winning the race, I think, will be Lewis Hamilton, because at the start, I don't think Lewis Hamilton will get Charles Leclerc at the start. What I think will happen is Leclerc will get away P1, Hamilton will get away P2. They'll push very hard in the first stint to build a gap to the midfield, and I think Lewis Hamilton will go for the undercut on Charles Leclerc. And because the undercut at this track is so immensely powerful, you could even argue the undercut at this track is the most powerful on the calendar. That will win Lewis Hamilton the Singapore Grand Prix. Also coupled with the fact that he does have a faster race car than Charles Leclerc, and I think that is how he will win the Grand Prix. But if he does win, it'll be his 5th win in Singapore, and he will then become the record holder for race victories in Singapore. And Mercedes are going for their 5th race victory in Singapore. The last team to win this race and not be Mercedes was Ferrari in 2015. Since 2014, in terms of race victories at this track, Mercedes have dominated. In P2 will be Charles Leclerc, because I think Leclerc does have good pace. I think the Ferrari pace will not be as bad to say it was in Hungary, so he will be able to maintain a good podium position. And yeah, again, I think it'll get jumped at the pit stops by Lewis Hamilton, but it'll come out P2, and then after that, because it'll be so hard to pass, especially that Ferrari, which is like an alien in a straight line, I think Charles Leclerc will finish in 2nd place. It won't be comfortable, but he will finish in 2nd place. If he does win, though, again, it'll be his 3rd consecutive victory, joining Damon Hill and Mika Hakkinen for winning 3 in a row once they won their first race. But also, it will be his 1st win in Singapore. And Ferrari are going for their 3rd win in Singapore since 2008. Of course, 2008 was the first time we came here. The other 2 victories for Ferrari were 2010 with Fernando Alonso and 2015 with Sebastian Vettel. And then in 3rd place, I'm going to go for Max Verstappen, because I think Max is probably going to have the best, in clean air at least, he's going to have the best race pace out of anyone else. And that will allow him to get a podium. And I think because Sebastian Vettel still at the moment is not that confident, and he is still prone to mistakes, as we saw in qualifying and of course at Monza and even Spa. He's not really driving at his best right now. And again, coupled with the Ferrari race pace, which is not that great, I just don't think Sebastian Vettel will be able to finish on the podium today. So I think Max Verstappen will take the podium in 3rd place. But if he does win, it'll be his 1st win in Singapore, and Red Bull going for their 1st win at this circuit since 2013. But those are my predictions. And now I'll bring in Nib. But before I bring him in, just want to say one thing. And this is a big disclaimer for everyone watching, whether you're watching after or watching right now. Because 2 weeks ago, my and Nib, our volume difference was quite big, I am going to lower my microphone level from now on in the stream to be more similar to Nib, so it doesn't, he doesn't sound like a regular person and I sound like God. I want it to be more similar in volume level. Now, I listened back to the race watch-along for Monza, and Nib's microphone level was still fine if you turn the volume up on your device and also on the stream as well. So, as soon as Nib starts talking, make sure to turn your volume up as much as you can to hear him. And then once I've lowered my mic levels, you should be able to hear him and me, and we should be at a more similar level for the stream. So, let me now bring in Nib. And Nib, how you doing? And what do you think is going to happen then for Singapore?
Yeah, I'm doing very well, and I hope everyone else is doing very well in the chat. Well, let's get straight into my predictions for the race. I'm going to be extremely, extremely boring here. Um, Winning the race for me is going to be Charles Leclerc. If Mercedes can't get past a Ferrari at Monza, how are they going to get past on Singapore? That's my sort of logic. Of course, there could be safety cars and undercuts and virtual safety cars which could come into effect. But I think that in recent races, Ferrari have been a bit better in reacting and to preempting other teams' pit stops, of course, Mercedes pit stops. And I think that even if there is going to be an undercut, that Leclerc might even pit beforehand or still be able to defend from Hamilton. So for me, Lewis Hamilton winning, sorry, not Lewis Hamilton, Charles Leclerc winning the Grand Prix. Then 2nd is going to be Lewis Hamilton for me. I don't think he'll have just quite enough um, to get past Leclerc. And we really don't know about Ferrari's pace because they made quite a lot of changes from Friday to Saturday, of course, where we've seen all the race work done on the Friday. So it'll be interesting to see how Ferrari's race pace actually is with this first time with their new upgrade package. And then 3rd for me is going to be Sebastian Vettel. So everyone's staying in the same places. Yeah, that's my prediction.
And there you go. And hopefully everyone can hear me, and hopefully I'm coming through still okay. But yeah, that's his prediction. Let me know in the live chat, guys. What do you think for this Singapore Grand Prix? What do you think is going to happen? Again, though, just to say, don't forget to subscribe for more content like this as we consistently do watch-alongs for practice to qualifying and the race for every race weekend in 2019. And we'll be doing the same hopefully for 2020 as well. So don't forget to subscribe for that. Bottom right of the screen, you can do it right there, or go to my homepage, subscribe, and hit the notifications bell. And also don't forget to hit the like button, as it does help out the channel very, very much. But let me now, as I get to the final few pictures, let me now get to you guys in the chat to see what you guys are saying for predictions. Let me try and find the first one, and then we will get to it. Oh, I've actually had a donation from Daniel Y. I'm not sure what the currency is, but it's 5,000 something. I think it's probably a lot less in conversion to British money. But he says, thanks for the live always. I want to see a Ferrari win and Hulkenberg P6. Thank you very much for that, Daniel. And yeah, thank you for that. But let me get to the predictions. Let me find the first one. And then we'll get to the rest. So, Prussia says Vettel, Leclerc, Verstappen. Hornblower says Leclerc, Hamilton, Verstappen, Vettel, Bottas, Albon, Hulkenberg, Sainz, Norris, and Giovinazzi. Chris, 1983, says Leclerc, Bottas, Verstappen, Vettel, Norris, Albon, Ricciardo, Perez, Hulkenberg, and Kvyat. JB saying, Chaz said the Ferrari was an alien. Does that mean Into the Barrier was right all along? Yeah, it probably does. Right, let me find some others. The Juiciest Panda says Max, Charles, Hamilton, Bottas, Vettel, Albon, Ricciardo, Hulkenberg, Magnussen. Michael Kell says Hamilton to win from Leclerc, Albon, Bottas, Vettel, Sainz, Hulkenberg. And Shaman LP thinks Ricciardo will finish in the top 5 in all positions. Let me find a few others if I can. Havilange 11 says Hamilton, Verstappen, Leclerc, Vettel, Bottas. Who else have we got here that I can find? Gina says Max, Hamilton, Albon, Bottas, Norris. Let me find some others. Rise says Hamilton, Verstappen, Leclerc, Bottas, Albon. Jack Mundo says Lewis, Max, Seb. Super Vlogger Michael says Hamilton, Vettel, Leclerc. Savage Savs says Vettel, Leclerc, Hamilton, Verstappen, Albon, and Bottas. Tony Stewart says I was going to say Lewis. He says Leclerc actually, and I'll get to the others in just a moment. Nib, I just want your thoughts on Daniel Ricciardo's exclusion. Also for the race, what does he need to do to get a good result, and where do you think realistically he will finish?
Obviously, what he needs to do is dive bomb City, just into every single corner to try get past cars. But realistically, I don't think he'll score points. I think he'll finish just outside the points. I think that starting from 20th will be a bit too far back, unless there are lots of incidents up ahead of him in the first couple of laps. Maybe that could propel him up into the points, but I think it might be a pretty tough race for Daniel Ricciardo.
Yeah, it will. I think, honestly, what we are going to see with Ricciardo is he'll make his way probably past the Williamses, but he'll probably end up getting to one of the Haases, and he will be stuck for quite a bit, unless the Haas is as slow as maybe we're thinking it's going to be. Here's another nice picture of a Toro Rosso sparking away. Lovely to see that in Formula 1, and that really is what Formula 1 should be all about, is that picture. But we have 10 minutes to go until the race gets underway in Singapore. So let me read out some more predictions. Let me find where I left of, there you go. Rahul says Verstappen, Bottas, Vettel. RV says Leclerc, Vettel, Hamilton. Tony Stewart was Leclerc, Vettel, Hamilton. Jack Mundo thinks Grosjean will wreck in the first turn. Yeah, it is likely, considering he's starting low down, but also he has to try something because he's going to be way behind the points anyway. Astro Stevo, Hamilton, Leclerc, Hulkenberg, Ricardo, Kvyat. Let me find some others here if I can. T Windridge, I think it is, says Hamilton, Leclerc, Bottas, Verstappen, Vettel. Let me see if we've got some others. Let me just have a quick look. Mr. Labman, great to see you, says Max, Hamilton, Albon. Great to see E7 Suspect, a regular here. Says Hamilton, Vettel, Verstappen. And Rahul also predicts a Leclerc and Hamilton crash. Seraph says Hamilton, Vettel, Leclerc. I will say though, when it comes to crashes at the first corner in Singapore, they are common here, no doubt about it. I think it's more likely to be between Vettel and Verstappen, to be honest, because whenever those two are on the same row of the grid, something does happen. So I think you can expect something to happen between those two, because they are both very aggressive drivers when it comes to the start of a Grand Prix in terms of asserting their authority on other people. So I think there's a lot more chance of a crash between those two than Leclerc and Hamilton, but who knows what could happen? We have no idea what's going to happen yet. Janaka saying, don't forget Vettel was alongside Verstappen. RV guaranteed safety car. Indeed. Let me find some other predictions here if I can. I'll read this comment out. It's a good one. Michael Kell, are there any track limits here? At the final, right before the finish line, you can abuse track limits there, but everywhere else you can't really, because one, you won't go faster than, if you won't go faster going off the track at other points of the track, but that bit right at the final bit before the finish line, you can gain a slight bit of time from that, but it's not, similar to Monza or the Parabolica, where of course you can go right off of the Parabolica and gain loads of time. But
and I must say, going off in the final corner will just add extra stress to the tyre during the race, which will not help. So in the end, it will just cause problems for the tyres. That's why they won't be wanting to go wide there.
Exactly, because long, fast corners is what hurts the tyres the most, and that corner can be, especially if you're on a long, tyre stint, it can be very tough on the tyres. And as you said, if you run wide or wider than you should be, then it's just going to make your life more painful on those tyres. Let me look at some other comments here if I can. Michael Kell, he said that because Renault need pace from somewhere. Right, let me see if there's any other predictions. Indra CM says Leclerc, Vettel, Max. Swaroop, I think it is, says Max for the win. And thank you, Mr. Labman, for that, saying great chat and voice. 8 minutes to go. That was a few minutes ago, because now it's about 5 minutes to go. And you know what? I think now I will get into what we do in more detail for the watch along. So we have, as you can see there, just under 6 minutes to go until the start of the 2019 Singapore Grand Prix. So what we do is I will not be showing live footage because I can't, because I'll be breaking copyright law. And if I did do that, my channel would be took down in about a second. So that's not what we do here. What we do is I will show a slideshow of pictures. There'll be one every 4 minutes during the race, to keep you guys entertained as to pictures on the screen. And then what me and Nib are going to do is provide a radio style commentary of what is going on the circuit. Also, again, we won't have the lap counter because I'm still trying to work out a good system for having a lap counter that will be, seamless, and I won't have to fiddle around with it all the time. Because ideally, because I have to fiddle around with other stuff in the graphics for the streams, it's ideal if I could have a seamless system. So I'm going to try and figure that out for next year, to be honest. But so yeah, what we're going to do is provide a radio style commentary, and if you want to know what lap it is, every 2 or 3 laps we will say it's lap, something or other out of 61 or 60 if there's a stall at the start. So that's what we'll do for that. I will show a running order along the bottom of the screen, which of course will show the order of the race. I'll update it as much as I can. It will be more up to date today than it was, say, in the last 2 races, because there's less passing at Singapore, so it will be quite static at times. So it should be nicely up to date almost all the time. And also, I do have a delay on the device I watch my Formula 1 on. I watch Formula 1 on an Apple TV box on Now TV, and I have about a 45-second to 50-second delay. So if you do want to sync up with me and Nib, then when the formation lap officially starts, I will say, formation lap is go, and then you can sync up at that point. So obviously, once you get to it, if you're ahead of us, which you most likely are, pause when the formation lap gets underway, and then when I say formation lap is go, you can press play again and be synced up. If you don't want to sync up, that's no problem at all. It's completely your decision. And of course, if you're unable to watch the race but only listen to us, then of course we'll keep you up to date with the goings on of the Singapore Grand Prix. As we'll get to this final picture of a Red Bull there. As the F1 intro is now playing with 3 minutes to go until the formation lap gets underway. And the formation lap will be a bit longer today because it is Singapore. So it'll be about 2 minutes at least for the formation lap. And yeah, this is going to be, don't you think, Nib? This race, especially today, considering how mixed up the grid is at the front and also in the midfield, it's really a race about keeping your cool and waiting for the right moment, isn't it?
Yes, and it's certainly, of course, as we know, one of the most testing races for a driver. And it's going to be really interesting to see how, Charles Leclerc, it's his second season in Formula One, his second race around here. He's going to be under pressure the majority of the race. How is he going to cope? Is he going to be able to keep cool in the big pressurized moments? And so far this season, he has, like we've seen at Monza and Spa. But at Singapore, it is a whole different ball game, of course, with how hot and humid it is. So that is something I think they'll be wanting to keep an eye on. And not only just from Charles Leclerc, from all drivers, because it is, of course, the most testing circuit of the whole entire Formula One calendar.
Yeah, absolutely. It is. I'd say probably, yeah, it is the most demanding on the calendar. Physically the most, mentally, because at least, Malaysia was a very tough race, but at least in Malaysia, the lap time was not as long. The lap wasn't as long, and also it wasn't as tough of a track, skillfully, as Singapore is. That's what makes this circuit so hard. It's such a long race, which makes it so mentally hard, physically hard, of course, and it's very hard, of course, for the drivers to be able to push and not get right up against the walls, and that's why you do see drivers sometimes ending up in the barriers because they push too hard. But we are now about 1 minute and 10 seconds away from the race getting underway. And you know what? I'm going to get the running order up, I think, right now. So this is the starting grid for your Singapore Grand Prix. It's Leclerc, Hamilton, Vettel. That's the top 3. Then it's Verstappen 4th, Bottas 5th, Albon 6th, Sainz is 7th, Hülkenberg 8th, Norris 9th, Giovinazzi 10th, Gasly 11th, Raikkonen 12th, Magnussen 13th, Kvyat 14th, Perez 15th, Stroll is 16th, 17th is Romain Grosjean, 18th is George Russell, 19th is Robert Kubica, and of course at the back, not in the pit lane, but at the back is Daniel Ricciardo. But I'll get rid of the timer and get the text ready. So the formation that will be getting underway shortly in the next minute or so. So I'll just put the formation up as started. It hasn't officially started, but it will in just a moment. I'll give the syncing up point in a moment for you as well, Nib. As we are currently looking at, on my TV, Charles Leclerc in his Ferrari. And now the mechanics are starting to wheel certain bits off the grid, and everyone watching and waiting, anticipating a very close race, especially at the front of the field. As we now count down, we're now seeing on the TV, on my TV, Carlos Sainz, I believe that is, in the McLaren. Very good McLaren this weekend, and also Carlos Sainz is very good at this circuit, and the tyre blankets come off. And formation lap will be getting underway in just a moment. And of course, Leclerc still has the rip Tonio on back of his steering wheel, and that is great to see. Him still paying tribute to him.
Right, let me know as soon as they cut away from the Rolex clock.
I will. So everyone outside, everyone from 10th down to 20th is on medium tyres except for Gasly, who's P11 on hard compound tyres. Very interesting, that. Very interesting. As now we're on board with Sebastian Vettel. And just waiting for this formation lap to get underway. And it now, I think, ticks over. Now, here we go. So formation lap is go. Are you synced up?
Sure am.
Right, there you go then. And yeah, the formation lap is now officially underway in Singapore. So in about 2 minutes time, I'd say, the race will be getting underway. The lights will be going out as all the mechanics pile off the grid. And all the drivers now start to warm up their tyres for the start of this race. Hopefully at the front, we do not have a 2017-esque start, because I think we are in for a very good duel at the front. And I would hate to see a crash ruin it once again, as the front of the field now piles through into now the second sector. And according to Pirelli, if you're starting on the soft compound, you can go to the medium on between lap 12 and 19. Or if you want to go to the hard, you can do it between lap 11 and 18. I think for the soft tyre runners, that's about correct. But for the medium and hard tyre runners, they're going to be going at least double the laps on their tyres. Especially Gasly. Gasly is probably going to go 35, 40 laps on that compound, as long as he doesn't have any damage during the race. As now they come through the Anderson Bridge. This is where Charles Leclerc almost dropped it in qualifying and lost pole position, but wonderfully held it as they now come through turn number 13. And I'll get the slideshow up now. So there you go. And that'll play, yeah, one picture every 4 minutes. And if I ever need to adjust it so you guys can see the pictures, I will make sure to do so. As now the drivers come into the final sector. And now come through the final few turns, which on your own are very difficult corners, but if you ever have to go wheel to wheel, it's even more difficult. Now we're seeing Toto Wolff looking very tense. Can Mercedes win for the first time since Hungary? It'll be interesting to see how they win, if they do win. As now Charles Leclerc is coming into the entry of turn 21. And now the top of the field comes through turn 20 and 21. And I might as well get the text ready now for the race getting underway. It hasn't officially started, but it is about to. So that's why it says race has started in the top left. Of course, we'll say when the lights go out in just a moment. As the front of the field now comes to the pit straight. Charles Leclerc now about to line up on pole position for the first time at this circuit. He has the most poles in 2019. And you could argue if he had better luck, he could have converted all of the previous 4. So he's a strong person from pole position. As now the racing points come through the final corner. Now Romain Grosjean. And again, everyone from P10 down to P20 is on medium compound tyres except for Pierre Gasly on the hard compound. So watch out for Gasly today. Could be a dark horse on the hard compound of tyre. As now Kubica and Ricciardo line up on the back row of the grid. And the lights now come on in Singapore. It's 3, it's 4, it's 5 in Singapore. It's going Singapore very quickly. And Charles Leclerc gets away very well. And here comes Sebastian Vettel round the outside, but he doesn't get it. Verstappen just keeps ahead of Bottas. Albon still ahead of Sainz. Hulkenberg up the inside of Carlos Sainz, I believe, there. But Sainz will hold it. I think the top 10 is exactly the same. Vettel over the back of Hamilton. And now Vettel will get a great run with that supreme straight line speed. Can Sebastian Vettel get into P2 on the run down to turn 7? We're not seeing it. Now we are. Will Vettel go round the outside? No, he doesn't. But will he cut back and get a better run? Hamilton holding him off. Can Sebastian get through? No, he can't. Lewis holds him off, and that's exactly what he needed to do. Great driving, defensive driving from Lewis Hamilton. And it's Charles Leclerc leading. Kevin Magnussen's had an amazing start. He's gone from 13th to 10th on this first lap. Ricciardo's up to 16th. Carlos Sainz is last. Carlos Sainz has got a problem in the background. Yeah, I think he's got a puncture.
I think he had a turn 5, he got a puncture.
And Russell has front wing damage somehow. So it is Leclerc leading from Hamilton, Vettel, Verstappen, Bottas, Albon. Then Hulkenberg is now P7. As we've got Gasly defending from Raikkonen. Raikkonen getting way out of shape. And Gasly holds him off for P11 at the moment. It's Norris in P8. P9, Antonio Giovinazzi. Great position for him on the medium compound tyres. Highest medium compound tyre runner. As now the front of the field comes to the end of the first lap. And it is again Leclerc leading from Hamilton second. Vettel third. Verstappen fourth. Bottas fifth. And Albon, Hulkenberg, Norris, Giovinazzi. And Norris has passed Hulkenberg. Look in the background. Hulkenberg's pitted, so that's where he got the damage from. For Carlos Sainz. So Hulkenberg was involved in that. So Norris has gone up to P7. Hulkenberg in the pits, and he'll be 18th after this pit stop. So that puts Antonio Giovinazzi into 8th place. Kevin Magnussen up to 9th. What a start for Magnussen. And we've got a close field at the top.
I didn't actually see Renault actually change the front wing there. They just pitted Hulkenberg and off he went.
Well, that's a weird strategy. Maybe they're going for an absolute supreme undercut. I don't know. Here comes a Williams, though, for a front wing change, and it is Russell. And
apparently Russell had some contact with Ricciardo.
Oh, that's interesting. And here we go. You can take us through this, Neb.
And here we go. Daniel Ricciardo's start, as he gets a pretty good start here. Well, the Haas is actually getting a pretty poor start, and he just dives up the inside. Assume we're going to see George Russell here. Oh, yes, his teammate there, Robert Kubica, I think that was in front of him. 3 wide into the first corner is not going to work, and unfortunately, contact between Russell and Ricciardo, as there's an issue there on the McLaren. The jack, I believe, isn't holding the car up, which is not what you want. So Carlos Sainz is having an even longer pit stop than he wanted.
Absolutely, and is
50
now
seconds in the pit lane.
He's going to be lapped. Well, he is now lapped. Look at Lewis Hamilton, though. Lewis Hamilton is now catching right up to Charles Leclerc straight away. So that is confirmation that Lewis Hamilton does have a quicker car for the race, because he's able to catch up already as we now start lap 3. And Lewis Hamilton does do the new fastest lap of 1:48.6, which is very quick. Already on the end of lap 2. I'm just completing the rest of the order. So Grosjean is 16th. And it's Kubica. Hulkenberg is 18th on a supreme undercut challenge. Russell is 19th. As Leclerc, as expected, massively pulls away on the straight there. And then Carlos Sainz, such a shame. P20. He has the pace to be at the front of the midfield, and he's not going to be anywhere near in this Grand Prix. As
he was in his pit box for 42 seconds.
That is quite dramatic. As Ricciardo passes Perez. So Ricciardo up to 14th already. He's flying through this field. Daniel Ricciardo. I know the Renault's quick, but I didn't think it would be that quick at the start of the race. So Ricciardo 14th, Perez is 15th. And Perez might have some damage because Perez is already, after 3 laps or 2.5 laps, he's already, 3 seconds behind his teammate, Stroll. So Perez, I think, has a slight issue possibly. As now the top 6 come through and they are miles ahead. And here you go, Nib, here's the race start.
Yeah, and here we go. We can see that Leclerc got a very good start. I don't know who that was in the Toro Rosso there. Very poor start. But Leclerc did get a very good start. Vettel did get also a pretty solid start. Wasn't able to get himself quite up alongside Hamilton, as we can see there, of Albon and Sainz going close together. Was any contact there? Not quite. And Hulkenberg up the inside of turn 2 there. I'm just waiting to see where the contact. So no contact through there. Just wait to see if it was through turn 5. As now we're going to go on board with Ricciardo, as even though we've already seen this replay with the contact of him and George Russell at turn 1, as they're about to bang front wings and wheels there. Yep, there's the contact right there. I'm just waiting to see if we get a replay of Carlos Sainz's incident, but it's certainly a very good start from Ricciardo. And here we go, Carlos Sainz through turn 5. Oh, and yeah, pretty hefty contact there with Nico Hulkenberg, and an immediate puncture there.
That was a very hard hit. Maybe he might even have suspension damage because that was very hard on that rear tyre and Grosjean. So that's how Grosjean got past, I think, maybe a car or two by taking to the escape road, but he had no choice. That's how Grosjean did at the start. As Hamilton continues. And Nico Hulkenberg does a new fastest lap in 18th place on a 1:47.9. So I guess if he doesn't catch traffic, that should work. But if he catches traffic, that will end horribly for him. But Leclerc, only 7 tenths ahead of Hamilton, as we're now about to begin lap 5 in Singapore. As they now come through that final corner. Sebastian Vettel still hanging on. He's not too far away, but definitely Hamilton quicker, as Hamilton now, of course, can open that DRS. Verstappen has DRS on Sebastian Vettel, and Bottas and Albon already being dropped. Albon about a second or 1.2 seconds behind Valtteri Bottas, but definitely Lewis Hamilton looking the faster car at the moment, and already they are 9.5 seconds, the leaders, the 2 leaders at the front, ahead of Lando Norris is at the front of the midfield. So if they can keep pushing at this pace, they should build a good enough gap for themselves. And here we go, Hamilton and Leclerc. This is the sector. The second and middle sector is where Mercedes are going to be stronger. Maybe not stronger than Ferrari, because in qualifying, Ferrari were a lot better than expected. But this is where the Mercedes car definitely works better than that Ferrari, as they now come through turn 13. And here we go. This is a new DRS zone for this year, the 3rd DRS zone, heading down to turn 14. And Hamilton, yeah, about 9 tenths of a second behind. You have to say, Nib, I think already Mercedes have got to be planning an undercut possibly.
Yeah, quite possibly. It seems as if Hamilton is able to catch up to the back of Leclerc at will at the moment. It seems as if Leclerc certainly are managing everything here, because you can see the top 5 and even top 6 are still very close, and they haven't exactly pulled a massive gap already to Norris. It's only about 9 seconds at the moment, which usually you'd expect it to be a little bit more. So I think it suggests that Leclerc isn't actually pushing too hard at the moment and just managing the race at the moment.
Another thing, though, it's interesting. If you look at Lando Norris, he's actually catching the top 6. He's catching the top 6. He was 9.5 seconds behind. Now he was 8.5 behind. So Norris is actually catching the leaders. So as you said, I think Leclerc is absolutely parking the bus, as they say in another sport, to make sure the tyres do not go away too quickly. But Lando Norris is basically on the pace with the leaders at the moment, as yeah, Leclerc is leading by a second. We're now lap 6 out of 61. Leclerc leading from Hamilton by about a second, and then it's about a second back to Vettel, another second back to Verstappen, and then Bottas, Albon. And then, yeah, Norris not too far behind the leaders, and not too far behind Albon, only a couple seconds. Norris looking good. In the McLaren and Verstappen taking a very wide line into turn 13. And I assume that's to try and get a better run on this extra DRS zone we have for this year. But we do have a train, I think we can say, behind Charles Leclerc, because everyone, I think, maybe not Albon, but the top 5 for sure, is within DRS of one another. So we have a train at the moment behind Charles Leclerc for the lead of this race. And yep, Lando Norris is catching. Go on, Neb.
Yeah, I was just about to say Norris has gained about 4/10 on this lap. The gap actually was out to about 9 seconds after about the first sector. But yeah, clearly showing that these guys at the front aren't pushing, and that Leclerc, of course, it isn't going to hurt him by going any slower if Hamilton can't get right to the back. The only person is going to hurt is Lewis Hamilton, of course, him sitting in the dirty air of Charles Leclerc, as Max is getting ever closer to Sebastian Vettel and might be looking to make a challenge out of turn 5 here if he is close enough. He's certainly closest he has been, but it's going to take some mighty effort to get past the Ferrari in a straight line, that's for sure.
Absolutely. As he's got DRS open, and I think the Ferrari and the Red Bull are at best matched in that straight. Yeah, it's going to take the Ferrari being at least a second a lap slower than Verstappen for him to pass him. But yeah, Lando Norris catching. And you know what? I actually hope it's because he is not pushing that hard at all. But I think it is most likely because these top 6 are not really pushing. And yeah, as Daniel Ricciardo, we're not seeing it, which is really annoying. But Daniel Ricciardo has passed Lance Stroll for 13th place. So Ricciardo is 13th, and he is about 4.5 seconds off points. And in the points is Gasly, of course, in P10 on the hard. There you go. Down the inside. Nice move. Stroll fighting for all it's worth, but he knew that the Renault was coming through. So Ricciardo up to 13th. And Stroll is down to 14th. Racing Point not really looking that great at the moment. As the top 6 again, as we've got FIA race control. No further action for Hulkenberg and Sainz for the turn 5 incident on the first lap. As Charles Leclerc starts lap 8 out of 61, and Lewis Hamilton looks a bit closer this time than he did previously. As they're all coming through turn 1, and it's really a waiting game at the moment because they're all waiting for the pit stop phases because they know they can't really pass one another. So they're just waiting for that ideal point in time where they can then come in, get a fresh set of tyres on and really go for it. By the way, the closest battle on track, Pierre Gasly and Kevin Magnussen. I would like to see that because that's the battle for P9. Magnussen is on mediums, Gasly is on the hard compound. Gasly looking strong, and to be honest, I thought he would, because I think the hardest compound you go on, the better you're probably going to be looking. And yet Gasly about half a second behind Magnussen.
And you say that Hamilton was closer than ever to Leclerc there, but then after the first sector, he pulls out 0.5 of a second through the first sector on Hamilton, and the gap is already out past a second. So just shows you how far still Ferrari are in that first sector, and that is really the only place where you can overtake. And if that remains to be the case for the whole entire race, it's going to be super hard. But as you mentioned, the potential overtaking is going to come from the pit stops, and with Leclerc driving slowly at the moment, of course, that puts him in danger of being under threat from an undercut. But obviously they're not going to pit just as yet. And I did say, of course, just before the race that perhaps Ricciardo might not get into the points. Well, I think my mind might be changed already on that. I think that Ricciardo is looking very strong, and I think that he could be very well on for points this race.
Yeah, he could. He's closing in all the time on the points. Current people in the top 10. He's only, I think, 3.5 seconds, maybe 4 seconds off points. That's not too far. And again, if he can do an undercut, then I think Ricciardo can absolutely get in that top 10. Hulkenberg, who pitted very early on, is only 5.9 seconds behind Grosjean, even though Hulkenberg pitted on the first lap. Shows you, again, the power of the undercut, as the top 6 is so close at the front. Lap 9 out of 61 it is. Leclerc leading by 1.3 seconds from Lewis Hamilton. Vettel is within DRS of Hamilton, not anymore. Verstappen within 7/10 of Vettel. Bottas within 7/10 of Verstappen. Albon a second behind Bottas, and Norris is actually doing really well. He's only 3.5 or now 3 seconds behind Alex Albon in a McLaren that is clearly not as quick. So very good performance by Norris. And also the midfield is not that slow at the moment. Antonio Giovinazzi is doing well. He's pulled ahead of Magnussen clearly, and is only 2.5 seconds off Norris. So Antonio looking strong. Gasly also looking strong. Hard compound tyres, remember. P10, that's probably going to guarantee him a points finish if he continues like this. And also Raikkonen is in there as well on the mediums, as Hamilton, as we now on board with him, is closing up through 19. And now turn 20 and 21. And also the fight for third at the moment, very close. Verstappen within DRS of Vettel. And Bottas looks actually quite close to Max Verstappen. Vettel does, though, have DRS. And yeah, Valtteri getting quite close to Max now. Valtteri starting to push, as getting team ready from Lewis Hamilton, probably saying that Leclerc is slow and that they can absolutely beat him. As Bottas tries to get a good run through turn 5. Did he get it? I don't think so. No, he didn't. And that will result in him staying behind. As I'm just looking at the order to see if anything is different. No, it's not. The closest battle on track is Bottas, Verstappen, Vettel for third place. Gasly and Magnussen is a close battle. And also Ricciardo and Kvyat. I think Ricciardo will be getting past Kvyat pretty soon. And yeah, he's only 2 tenths behind at the moment. And does he get past Ricciardo? We'll see it on the timing, on the order. We won't actually see the overtake, which is annoying. I don't know if Ricciardo will get past. And there you go. Ricciardo now on board, fighting like crazy of Kvyat. Kvyat defends to the inside, down to turn 10. Kvyat runs wide. Ricciardo round the outside. That's good. He has to force him now wide. Force him wide again. And now he can try and get a great run on the exit of turn 13. As Stroll almost hits the back of Ricciardo. And surely, surely Ricciardo can get past Kvyat here. Down the inside. Kvyat defending so aggressively. And Daniel Ricciardo is up to 12th. And Lance Stroll comes through. Lance Stroll gets to 13th. Great racing. Ricciardo, Stroll, Kvyat. Kvyat struggling a lot. Perez also. Great racing, Nib.
Very good racing indeed. I thought for a moment that Lance Stroll was going to do a classic, F1 gaming thing and just go right into the back of the driver trying to set up the wide line. But thankfully, he didn't for Daniel Ricciardo's case. And Ricciardo up into 12th, and Stroll up into 13th as well. But that was great battling there. And Ricciardo just setting everything up perfectly through turn 10, 11, 12, 13. And then, of course, eventually up the inside at turn 15, I think it is. So very nicely done there by Mr. Ricciardo.
Absolutely. And that's a very important move because ahead, you got Raikkonen, Gasly, Magnussen. And those 3 drivers for sure are going to be slower than Ricciardo because Ricciardo is on the medium tyres, which is the best tyre to be on right now. And also, those cars are slower than the Renault around this track, as we're now on board with Valtteri Bottas coming through turn 11, turn 12, and you really have to say these cars are cruising. These top cars, they're not pushing that hard at all. As we're now lap 11 out of 61. Norris is still within 3 seconds of Albon. So Norris, again, still doing well. Giovinazzi, though, is actually, as Perez feigns a move up the inside of Kvyat, turn 13. Will he get a great run on him? I think he does. Perez down to turn 14. Will he get the move done? Pulls to the outside to Sergio Perez. And switch back. Can he get the move? Kvyat's going to force him wide. Will Perez go down the inside? Yes, he does. Nice risky overtaking. And Sergio Perez gets up to 14th. Great racing, but I have to say, Kvyat is really slow. I don't know why. I know he was slow in qualifying, but that car should be a lot stronger than that. But yeah, Kvyat now 15th. And under pressure from Grosjean now. So yeah, Kvyat has no pace. They should pit Kvyat probably, because he has no pace right now in the Toro Rosso. But as I was saying, Norris is still 3 seconds behind Albon, but Giovinazzi is catching Norris, and so is Magnussen. So the midfield, the upper midfield, it looks really strong right now. Very competitive field in terms of pace. And here's a replay of Perez. Switch back through. And did Kvyat hit the wall then? Did he hit the wall? I think he did. I think Daniel Kvyat hit the wall on the exit of turn... What, the exit of turn 14.
Not too sure.
He might have clipped it, but I thought I saw some dust there. We'll have to see later on. But Leclerc on lap 12, leading by 1.4 seconds. Vettel 1.2 behind Hamilton. But Verstappen, Bottas and Albon all have DRS on Vettel and one another as well. Norris is 7th, 3 seconds off that battle. Giovinazzi is catching Norris now. Remember, Norris is on soft tyres used. Soft tyres from qualifying. And Giovinazzi is on fresh medium tyres. Not fresh right now, but fresh when they started the race. So Antonio should start to slowly but surely close up to the McLaren. And Magnussen is maintaining position for the moment. As on the TV, we're now seeing Nico Hülkenberg closing up to Romain Grosjean. And Hülkenberg, of course, pitted on the first lap. And there's a car in the pits now, and it is Daniel Kvyat, I believe, who has just pitted. Yes, it is. So Daniel Kvyat is the first to pit. That might trigger some other pit stops as Hülkenberg closes in on Grosjean. So Grosjean at the moment is in 15th as Hülkenberg closing in a lot now. And I think Nico really should be getting past Grosjean soon, because Grosjean will hold him up a lot, as Kvyat will come out, I believe, in 18th place. I believe, oh no, in 18th. Let me just update that with the running order. And Hülkenberg, is Hülkenberg ahead? No, he's not. He's still behind the Haas, which is going to cost him. As don't you think, Niv, the top 10, if you look at the gaps, it's really close in the field.
Yeah, usually by this stage, the top 6 or so have ran away by an absolute mile, but Lando Norris is still, well, it's now actually under 3 seconds away from Alexander Albon. The top 6 really are just cruising around, and there hasn't been really any gap to have opened up, that's for sure, as everyone is conserving. But I think that some of the next action that we'll be seeing on track is Daniel Ricciardo catching up to Kimi Räikkönen. The gap was about 4.4 seconds. A couple laps ago now is 1.2. So Daniel Ricciardo and Renault are looking very strong here so far this race.
Absolutely. Daniel Ricciardo, reminder, P12, as you can see on your screen. That's him on the screen. Daniel Ricciardo, P12, and yet he's catching Räikkönen very quickly. Räikkönen, though, within DRS of Gasly, so Ricciardo is going to have trouble passing Räikkönen, because, of course, the Alfa is quick in a straight line, and DRS for Alfa will help, as Sergio Perez comes into the pits. So Sergio Perez pits, and that'll be to cover off Daniel Kvyat, I believe. So that will put Romain Grosjean up to 14th. Hülkenberg 15th. I will say, though, Haas are not looking as bad as I thought they would. Magnussen P9. Pace is still good as Perez goes from medium to hard compound tyres. Yeah, the pace of the Haas car is not too bad. With Magnussen at least. With Grosjean it is, but with Magnussen it's not too bad. They're actually in the fight for points at the moment, and Perez had to make that pit stop because he's only just come out ahead by about half a second of Daniel Kvyat, so that was vital for Perez, and hopefully for him he can undercut his way up the field. As on lap 14 out of 61, Hamilton again applying more pressure. He is 7 or now 9 tenths of a second behind Charles Leclerc. Vettel and Verstappen look a bit closer to Hamilton and Leclerc as well. Albon has fallen off behind Bottas. He no longer has DRS as Lando...
It goes from 1.4 to 1.1 as soon as you start speaking.
Commentator's curse right there. And that is allowing Lando Norris to catch up, of course, because if Albon can't get DRS, then that won't help Albon keep ahead a gap of Norris, as Hamilton looks a lot closer to Leclerc through the exit of turn 3. And yet here they come. It's 6 tenths of a second. It's closer than it's been, but it's still not close enough for Lewis Hamilton to realistically make a move down to turn 14. And yeah, Charles Leclerc still pulling away in a straight line despite Lewis Hamilton having DRS, which is quite disappointing from a Mercedes point of view. But Sebastian Vettel has dropped back quite a bit. Saying that, Vettel then gains 3 tenths. Timing screen's a bit all over the place, but there you go. But yeah, Albon is in a bit of trouble now because he's dropped off behind Bottas as Daniel Kvyat has just done the fastest lap of the race of 47.4. As is, who's this? Hulkenberg trying to pass Grosjean for 14th, but he doesn't get past. And stays behind Hulkenberg on the hard compound of tyres. So he's probably going to try and go to the end, even though it won't work. Maybe hope for a safety car later on. But yeah, because Albon has dropped off Bottas and is no longer getting that DRS, that's allowing Norris to catch up. And Giovinazzi, and Magnussen, and Gasly. As Kvyat, yeah, new fastest lap, 47.4. And that just shows you, again, with Hulkenberg earlier, the undercut is really powerful at this track. So once they find a gap out there, the top drivers or top teams, they will be pitting their drivers. But at the moment, Nib, as I said a moment ago, there's no real gaps out there, is there?
Yeah, I was about to say, the only reason why Danny Kvyat is setting fast lap of the race is because the guys at the front really aren't pushing at all at the moment. You know, we're used to seeing Hamilton or Leclerc set about 20 fastest laps in a row. When you're leading the front of the race. I remember the French Grand Prix, it was certainly like that. As we have Kimi Räikkönen into the pits, which promotes Daniel Ricciardo up into P11, who's now going to be wanting to be hunt down Pierre Gasly for P10. But just before Ricciardo could get up to the back of Raikkonen, as he just got in DRS zone of Raikkonen decides to pit. And which tyres is Raikkonen going to go on? He's going to go on to the white compound of tyre.
And it will be interesting to see where he comes out. Does he come out ahead of Robert Kubica? No, he does not. And Perez is right behind him. Perez, I think, is alongside Raikkonen right now. We're just not seeing it. But yeah, Perez only 2 tenths behind. Perez does a new fastest lap of 46.6. Perez is about to pass Raikkonen. Unless the Alfa can stay ahead. But yeah, Raikkonen comes out in 16th place. So Grosjean up to 13th. And yeah, there you go. Is that Perez? Yeah, it is. Perez ahead of behind Raikkonen. Raikkonen now stuck behind Kubica. So if Ricciardo, if he wanted to, could do a mega lap now, come in and probably come out ahead of Raikkonen if Raikkonen continues to be held up. So we'll have to see what happens on that. But yeah, Raikkonen has come out in 16th place behind Robert Kubica, who has announced he's leaving Williams at the end of 2020 and is running 15th at the moment. And Norris is continuing to catch Albon. He's only 2 seconds behind Albon now. As Raikkonen looking for a switch back on Kubica. Can he now go round the outside? And Kubica really really defending hard. Raikkonen there goes right up the inside. Oh, that looked like contact was coming, but it didn't happen. And this is holding up these drivers so much. This is very reminiscent to Sergei Sorokin from last year, isn't it? Sergei Sorokin last year ruined half the grid's races, and Kubica is doing the exact same. He has no reason to let him through or to pit. This is all racing for position. Robert Kubica, you never know, might be racing these drivers later on. And that's why he is giving it everything at the moment, as it's Kubica, Raikkonen, Perez, Kvyat, all in a train going through turn number 1. And Raikkonen down the inside at turn 5. And Raikkonen gets up to 15th unless Kubica can come back. But I don't think Kubica will. So Raikkonen, he had to get that done, Raikkonen, because if he stayed behind, he was going to be absolutely finished for this Grand Prix. And now Perez, who also, remember, got stuck and had that famous collision with Sergei Sorokin last year. Now he has to deal with another pesky Williams holding him up around the streets of Singapore.
Just decides to drive right into the side of him this time.
Yeah, let's hope he doesn't do that this time. That was crazy then. But the top 6, by the way, are all now not in DRS of one another. Lap 18 out of 61. Leclerc leading 1.4 seconds, or now 1.5 to Hamilton. Vettel 2.3 behind Hamilton. Verstappen 1.2 behind Vettel. Bottas 1.5 behind Verstappen, and Albon about 1.2 behind him. As Perez switches back through turn 14 and goes down the inside. This is the corner where it all went wrong. It's basically a mirror image of what happened. And does Perez get past Kubica? Will he defend the inside? Perez throws it down the inside at turn 18. Kvyat now positions his car around the outside when you go down the inside for turn 20. Oh, thankfully Kubica is a smart person and they've all got through just about okay. That looked like it was going to be a crash at basically every single moment as Perez gets up to 16. And that was literally, wasn't it, Nib, a carbon copy of what Perez did last year?
Yep, except Perez, of course, was on the other side of the racetrack. He was on the outside, and of course moved across on Sorokin. Thankfully, no contact between there. Some good hard racing between the Williams Racing Point and the Toro Rosso of Danny Kvyat. And it must be said, a couple laps ago, Charles Leclerc was told to go into mode race, and he started to open up a bit of a gap to Hamilton. Hamilton has pegged it back a little bit now, just by a couple of tenths over the last few laps. But certainly the gaps to the rest of the other top 6 have really opened up now.
Indeed, as Bottas only 7 tenths, or now 9 tenths behind Verstappen. So Bottas is within DRS, but I don't know where they are on the track. Norris continuing slowly but surely to catch Albon. Norris almost closer to Albon than Albon is to Bottas. So again, the midfield, they're taking the fight to the top teams. I know the top teams are probably going slowly on purpose to save the tyres, but still, it's a race, and that might not pay off for them later on. We'll have to see. As Grosjean is still ahead of Hulkenberg, and Magnussen is pitting. As here's a replay of Hulkenberg at turn 7. Went down the inside of Grosjean. This is a replay, and Hulkenberg. Oh, that's so close. Maybe slight contact, I'm not sure. But Grosjean stays ahead. And this is the problem with pitting early at Singapore. You then get held up behind slow cars. So, with Magnussen pitting on lap 19 out of 61. Gasly on the hard compound tyre is now up to P9. Daniel Ricciardo is in the points after 20 laps. That is kind of because, you know, other drivers have pitted, but still, that's a good effort for Ricciardo.
Verstappen is complaining of no grip here, and he's really struggling.
Yeah, he is.
Bottas all over the back of him now.
He absolutely is. And Bottas all over the back of him. Will Bottas go for a move here? He's going to feign for it. Verstappen defends the inside. Will Valtteri get a better run out of turn 14? Yeah, Verstappen is really struggling. He cannot get the car positioned in the way he wants to. Max is all over the place. Let me just quickly do the order. So Ricciardo is now into the top 10. Stroll is 11th. Hulkenberg has passed Grosjean. Not seen by us, but Hulkenberg is past Grosjean. Magnussen came out 14th as Red Bull mechanics get ready. Sebastian Vettel pits. Bit surprising, and Verstappen pits as well. Bit surprising considering normally the lead driver gets the call, but there you go. Vettel into the pits, and he will come out.
In Belgium, didn't we?
Yeah, we did. We absolutely did. That might be the strategy. I don't know what tyres are going to put on. Mediums, or it's hard tyres, okay. But the problem is, they're in the midfield now. And those midfield drivers, because there is probably going to be a safety car later on, they do not have to move out the way. They've got some clear air here, but if they catch traffic and the next car is Stroll, who's not exactly as Hulkenberg comes out ahead of Verstappen, and this is what I mean. Pitting earlier than you want to can cost you time like this. And yeah, Verstappen was all over the place because Bottas is now 6.5 seconds behind Hamilton. Is Hamilton now closing up to Charles Leclerc? It's all going off now around the pit stops. Lap 20 out of 61. Still 41 laps to go in this basically endurance race around Singapore. So Bottas up to P3, Albon P4. Norris 5th, and Norris is only 1.5 seconds behind Albon. Antonio Giovinazzi is up to 6th. He's the highest medium tyre runner. Watch out for Giovinazzi. He's a dark horse for us. Very good result. Pierre Gasly, also watch out for him. Hard compound tyre runner. He's P7. Ricciardo's up to P8. Of course, Vettel and Verstappen have pitted. Go on, Nib.
So this is a very important moment in the race. I think that both the leaders here are going to come into the pit lane because there is quite a bit of a gap between Vettel and Stroll. Both Leclerc comes into the pits, but of course the undercut is massive here. Let's see. This is going to be very important because Sebastian Vettel is absolutely flying. This could be quite a big mistake here by Mercedes, and Bottas stays out as well. Who knows what's going to go on here? I think that Vettel might end up in P2 as Leclerc now in the pit stop. Is he going to have any issues? It looks like a very sweet and good pit stop there by Ferrari, indeed 2.4 seconds, as we're going to see just about where Sebastian Vettel is.
Here he comes. Oh, I think Vettel's going to do it. Here he comes, Sebastian Vettel, 3-turn 1. And Sebastian Vettel has jumped Charles Leclerc. Well, that's interesting. But yeah, right, well, Sebastian Vettel's ahead. That is an interesting strategy. I'm not quite sure what the thinking behind that is, but I'm sure we'll see later on if they...
And Vettel was about 3.5 seconds behind Leclerc when he pitted.
Yeah, so Hamilton's in trouble. Hamilton's got to pit or else he'll be behind everyone in that top, field of drivers. So Hamilton is leading at the moment from Bottas second. Antonio Giovinazzi is third. I know other people have pitted, but you've got to say that is something we did not think we'd be saying on lap 21 out of 61. Gasly is fourth. Ricciardo fifth. Stroll is sixth. And then it is Vettel, Leclerc, Verstappen is seventh, eighth, and ninth. But again, if they come up to the midfield drivers who are on the harder compound tyres, they're not on the hard tyre, but they started on the harder compound and they can run longer, then this might not work out. But Sebastian Vettel does have a 7-second gap to Stroll ahead as Lewis Hamilton continues. Oh, I'm not sure about this. Maybe they think that Stroll, Ricciardo, Gasly, Giovinazzi are going to stay out. They better hope so, because if they all start pitting, then this strategy has completely failed. So let me just update the order because it is absolutely all over the place. So Vettel is, seventh. Vettel does the new fastest lap, a 1:45.4.
And that is 1.5 seconds quicker than what Lewis Hamilton has just done.
Yeah, so if Hamilton pits, he's absolutely going to be not even on the podium at the moment. So I'm assuming they're going to try and run long and go onto mediums maybe, or just hope that they hit traffic.
Well, they don't have any fresh mediums. We talked about this
earlier
on. They don't have any fresh mediums after they ran them in Q1.
Exactly. Maybe fresher hard tyres, I don't know. But as we said, you can have fresher tyres, but if you can't overtake really around here. As Robert Kubica has just pitted. Norris has just passed Roman Grosjean for 12th. Also, the longer Hamilton stays out, Norris comes into play. Because remember, Norris was right on Albon's tail. I know Norris is 5 seconds behind Albon now, but I'm sure Norris in clean air could do faster lap times than Lewis Hamilton. So I'm not sure what the thinking is here at Mercedes. But again, we'll see later on. It's a long race. I'm sure they have some kind of plan. And Robert Kubica, again, has pitted. And he's come out in 19th place. Carlos Sainz is about a lap behind Robert Kubica. So, Carlos Sainz might as well just retire because there's no point really racing. Unless there is a safety car, but still. Not the greatest race, is it?
Bottas in the pits.
Bottas in as Magnussen passes Grosjean. That's probably because of team orders. As Giovinazzi now up to second. And look, Bottas way behind the Ferraris, way behind Verstappen. He'll come out behind Hülkenberg, will he?
Probably even Albon?
Let's see. Hülkenberg comes through turn 1 and no, Bottas will maintain it. So that's key. So Valtteri has not lost anything. So that's good for him. Valtteri effectively loses nothing through that. So I think Valtteri now is in a strong position because he hasn't lost anything. And he can now get after the other drivers on the fresher hard tyres. As Albon is going to try and pass Hülkenberg down the inside at turn 7. And Hülkenberg basically lets him through. Right, so let me try and update this order. It's moving all over the place. Hamilton leads from Antonio Giovinazzi in second. Pierre Gasly is third. I think that's the first time Gasly's ran in a podium position in his career. Ricciardo is fourth. Stroll is up to fifth. And Vettel quickly catching. So again, if Vettel gets held up, then that will give the advantage back to Lewis Hamilton. Vettel is 6th. Leclerc is 7th. Here's a replay of something on the Mercedes. Is there something damaged? I don't know what they're quite looking at there. As it's a slow-mo of Lewis Hamilton going through turn 7. Here's a replay of Raikkonen passing Grosjean for 14th place, I believe. Right, so Leclerc is 7th. 8th is Max Verstappen. 9th is Valtteri Bottas. Again, in terms of the net order, Valtteri has lost nothing in position. So he has fresher tyres now to go hunting. Albon is 10th. And by the way, Norris, I think Norris does really have the pace because he's still maintaining a similar-ish lap time to Albon. So Norris looking strong still. Hülkenberg 11th. Norris 12th. Magnussen is 13th as Leclerc is now pressurising Sebastian Vettel. Kimi Raikkonen, as we saw on the replay, is up to 14th. 15th is Sergio Perez as Romain Grosjean is in the pits. So Daniel Kvyat is up to 16th place. As, by the way, we're on lap 24 out of 61. And also, Giovinazzi is lapping around the same as Lewis Hamilton right now. And that is impressive. I know Antonio's on a better type of tyre, but that's still very impressive. Russell is up to 17th after that new front wing. Corsto pitted very early. And then it is Grosjean 18th, Kubica 19th, Sainz 20th. Still, surprisingly, no retirements, and we're almost halfway through the Singapore Grand Prix.
And as we can see here, Verstappen has caught up to the back of the Ferraris, and that would mean that Hamilton is off the podium at this rate.
Yeah, he is. He absolutely is. And again, the only saving grace is that Vettel and Leclerc and Verstappen get held up behind Stroll, Ricciardo, Gasly and Giovinazzi, because then he will start to gain time. But the Ferrari is so quick in a straight line. I'm sure they can try and pass. Is there? Valtteri Bottas, new fastest lap, a 1:45.2. That puts him in contention with his teammate Hamilton. As
Hamilton just did a 1:48.8.
Oh, that's an awful lap time. That's terrible.
Well, that's just his tyres absolutely falling off a cliff at the moment.
It is true, but that is a awful time, and they better hope it comes to him. I think maybe, are they hoping for a safety car possibly?
Yeah, but they are, but it's not like there's actually a whole group of cars battling at the moment. The closest action on track is Ricciardo and Gasly, which is 7/10 at the moment. But if there is a whole gaggle of cars battling, then fair enough. But yeah, this is a bit odd why they haven't pitted Hamilton quite yet.
Yeah, and it is costing them the race, as now Vettel is coming up to the back of that pack for second, third, fourth, fifth, which is Giovinazzi, Gasly, Ricciardo, Stroll.
As Giovinazzi's now catching Hamilton.
Absolutely incredible. This race is playing out in a way that I did not think, I just didn't think anything we're seeing right now be possible. It's unbelievable what we're seeing right now. Antonio Giovinazzi is second. He hasn't pitted yet, and he's catching Lewis Hamilton. As, to be fair, Sebastian Vettel not exactly climbing all over the back of Stroll, as Leclerc's dropped off Vettel and Verstappen's now catching Leclerc.
Bottas just got a team message to slow down so that Hamilton comes out in front of him.
That is, that's not a great team radio message if I'm being honest. That's a bit, I'm not sure about that one. I mean, Hamilton's going to win the championship anyway. So I'm not really sure why they want to do that. As Sebastian Vettel, now here we go. Sebastian Vettel, now he's trying to pass Stroll. The longer he stays behind, the more Sebastian Vettel will get held up. But saying that though, if Giovinazzi's going faster than Hamilton, then surely Stroll is going to be close on lap time to Hamilton. So if that is the case, then, you know, Vettel can just sit behind, gain with the other drivers and still come out ahead. But still, passing Stroll and the others is still a critical thing that they need to do.
Yeah. And I must say, the team message was Valtteri, it's James. Yes, he did say that. Can you do a 148, please? When he just did a 145. So, yeah, we know what that message actually means.
Yeah, slow down so Lewis can come out ahead so he can go for victory. That's what that means. And Antonio Giovinazzi, I think, is going to be leading this race in a minute because he's catching Hamilton. And look at Hamilton, he has no grip, even coming into the pit lane. And here he comes. Lewis Hamilton in the pits, lap 26 or 27 out 61. That's way too far for when the soft tyre should go. And he puts on the hard compound. And Antonio Giovinazzi leads the Grand Prix. It's the first time Alfa have led a race since the 1950s. What an unbelievable turn of events. Antonio Giovinazzi leads from Pierre Gasly. Wow, and there you go, Hamilton just ahead of Bottas. That's and Albon's off. He went off. He locked up, I think, going into the first turn, and he's dropped behind a couple of drivers, has he? No, he hasn't. The timing order just messed up. But it is, and I cannot wait to read this order out on lap 27 out 61. Leading the race, as Sebastian Vettel has passed Lance Stroll, leading the race is Antonio Giovinazzi. From Pierre Gasly in second. Here's a replay of Albon. And, we almost spun the car. Oversteer on entry to one. Nice save. So yeah, Ricciardo, who started last, is third. If a safety car comes out now, they're in a great position for the rest of the race. Not in terms of winning it, but, you know, being in the higher midfield positions. Vettel is now fourth. Stroll is fifth. Charles Leclerc is sixth. And we can see it right now. Verstappen's on board. Leclerc now being held up by the stroller.
The stroller.
Verstappen is seventh. Hamilton has come out in eighth place and is 5.6 seconds behind. They have lost the race, in my opinion. I have no idea what they were playing at. I think they were basically hoping they got lucky, which in this game, I'm afraid, you can't really do. You got to be a bit more, you know, on your toes about it, as Charles Leclerc is now in turn 3, closing on Lance Stroll. Leclerc has to get past. If he doesn't get past soon, Sebastian Vettel will run away from him. So he's got to get past Lance Stroll. And look at that, Stroll pulling away nicely in the exit. But here we come, Charles Leclerc, DRS, Ferrari power unit. Stroll defends, nice to see. Yes, great. A midfield driver defending. When do you ever see that? As Stroll defends. And I think it's because, Nib, as we've said, the midfield is actually really quick today.
Yeah, they are actually quick. And, of course, if they're quick in, when the leaders are doing what they're just doing, driving normally, of course, when they're going to go and overtake them, there isn't much of a gap differential. So it is actually going to be very hard for the leaders to overtake. Of course, we've seen that Vettel got past Stroll quite comfortably, but not so easy for Leclerc just then, that's for sure.
And now Vettel within DRS of, and Verstappen is closing on Leclerc. Not close enough though, but Vettel now within DRS of Ricciardo. Still, if Antonio's only in Formula 1 for another couple years, he will remember this when he led a Formula 1 race for at least 5 laps. What an absolute brilliant thing. And if he gets lucky along with Gasly and Ricciardo in terms of a possible safety car, I'm telling you, they are in for a very strong result, as Hamilton is now catching the Stroll, Leclerc, Verstappen group, and that is allowing Stroll's blocking is now allowing Lewis to catch up, and that's exactly what he needs. But Stroll, I don't think Stroll will be able to fight for long though, because he is in a car that is on older tyres at this point. As here comes Sebastian Vettel on Daniel Ricciardo. Vettel DRS open. Will he get past? Down the inside. Yes, he does. And Leclerc passes Stroll. Vital moves at the Scuderia. Vettel up to 3rd. Leclerc up to 5th. That's a net 1-2 for Ferrari. So Vettel is up to 3rd. And yet Ricciardo 4th. And I guess with Giovinazzi and Gasly, Nib, because other drivers went on the soft tyre for quite a bit, you never know. They could run very long and end up ending the race on soft tyres and being very quick.
Yeah, I'm not too sure what they're going to do, but it's certainly working out for them at the moment.
No doubt, as now Verstappen has to get past Stroll. And Verstappen, this is the problem now. Red Bull do not, of course, have good straight line speed. And the racing point in a straight line is very quick. So this is going to be tough for Verstappen, as Giovinazzi is still leading the Singapore Grand Prix by a 1 full second to Pierre Gasly, as Sebastian Vettel now starts to close on the hard-tired runner in Pierre Gasly. I think Gasly is going to do that. I think Gasly, because he's on the hard, he's going to go hard to soft, as the two Mercedes drivers are really starting to catch the pack ahead, as Verstappen now closes on Stroll. And the top 10, in fact, the top 12 are really close at the moment. Really close. We are in for a brilliant last 31 laps, as we're now halfway through the Singapore Grand Prix. And yeah, 31 laps to go, and you never know what could happen. As Vettel, will he go down the inside? Oh, Vettel and Gasly! And Vettel gets through. Gasly almost turned right in on him. Oh, thank God for Toro Rosso. That didn't end in a race-ending collision, as Max Verstappen has passed Stroll. And we're going to see a replay.
I was just about to say there, before contact, and here we go. Vettel launches it actually from quite a ways back, but Gasly continues to turn in. I'm not too sure if there was... there might have been contact rear to rear here with the rear wheels. Or was there contact on the front? I'm not too sure. Not a fantastic angle, but it certainly looked like there was contact. Here's come Max up the inside. Comfortable move in the end by Stroll. On Stroll, I should say. As we've got Giovinazzi here in the lead of the Grand Prix. Of course, he's 9/10 ahead of Sebastian Vettel in an Alfa Romeo.
Now,
absolutely incredible stuff.
Now, Nib, when we came into 2019, did you ever think you'd be saying that?
Oh, I mean, you never know what can happen in Formula One, but quite honestly, no.
It's unbelievable, and it just shows you how great Formula One has been in the last few races, that we now are getting crazy things like this and great racing through the field, as Vettel now is about to end Antonio's dream. Lap 31 out 61, Antonio Giovinazzi leads from Vettel, Gasly, Ricciardo, Leclerc, Verstappen, Stroll, Hamilton, Bottas, Albon. That's the top 10. And then it's Hulkenberg, Norris, Magnussen, Raikkonen, Perez, Kvyat, Russell, Grosjean, Kubica, and Sainz. And Sebastian Vettel is surely about to pass Antonio Giovinazzi. And here we go. Sebastian Vettel on the run down to turn 7. Giovinazzi defends. But Sebastian Vettel gets into the lead. Sebastian Vettel, net lead or not net lead, he is now officially leading the Singapore Grand Prix as Charles Leclerc passes Daniel Ricciardo for P4, and that's a net P2. So Vettel leading from Giovinazzi second, Gasly third. Charles Leclerc is up to fourth, and fifth is Daniel Ricciardo. And now the two Mercedes are now stuck behind the racing point of Lance Stroll. And that's a replay of Leclerc passing Ricciardo. And all these passes, by the way, as Verstappen goes down the inside of Ricciardo as well. These passes, they might seem pointless, but later on they will really become important, because these midfield drivers will come out on fresher tyres, maybe even softer tyres, and will maybe go faster. So they've got to get the job done now to avoid any biting them back on the backside later on. And Hamilton not exactly pressurizing Lance Stroll at the moment. And Stroll is in the pits. Stroll pits on lap 32 out 61, and I'm sure he'll go onto the hard tyre with 29 laps to go. So Hamilton up to P7, and the next car Hamilton needs to pass is Daniel Ricciardo. Let me just update the order. So Hamilton P7. Where does Stroll come out? Behind Raikkonen and Perez, as Leclerc down the inside passes Pierre Gasly. I'll update that in just a moment. I just want to make sure I put Stroll in the correct position. Stroll has come out in about 16th place, I believe. Yes, he has. So he'll come back to Stroll later on. He'll now have much fresher tyres, and he will really now be able to attack the rest of the midfield. So will the other drivers like Giovinazzi and Gasly and Ricciardo. So, yeah, Hamilton 7th, Bottas 8th. Alex Albon is up to 9th. Nico Hulkenberg 10th. Hulkenberg surely is going to have to pit again, because he's not going to be able to go to the end on those tyres. I think he is also, as Max Verstappen passes his ex-teammate Pierre Gasly. I think Hulkenberg is also hoping for a safety car at the moment. So it is Norris 11th, Magnussen 12th. Kimi Raikkonen is 13th at the moment. 14th is Sergio Perez. Do we get any midfield runners in the pits? No, we don't. Giovinazzi continues in currently second place. I don't know, though, what it'll be net position. Kvyat's 15th, and then Stroll has come out 16th as Gasly now pits as Leclerc passes Giovinazzi.
Yeah, turn 1. We missed that from the nearly missed that from the onboard shots. Now Verstappen's putting pressure on Antonio Giovinazzi. He's going to go around the outside of turn 5. Not quite, but I'm sure that Verstappen here, as he gets quite a nice cut back there on Giovinazzi, and they're already side by side. It's actually both got DRS, so Verstappen's going to have to go around the outside here to get this move done, as Hamilton also getting past Ricciardo there up into P5, and Verstappen up into P3, as Charles Leclerc is, I think it's about 5.5 seconds off the lead of the race, which I don't think we would have been saying during the first stint in this Grand Prix.
Absolutely, and Hamilton now all over the back of Giovinazzi, who's now just parking it all over the front of Hamilton. So Bottas is 7th. Gasly has come out behind Stroll in 16th place. And look at this train behind Giovinazzi and Lewis Hamilton. Cuts to the inside and Lewis Hamilton, does he go down the inside? No, he doesn't. Oh, Lewis not exactly decisive. Bottas passes Ricciardo. That was a bit undecisive from Hamilton. He just dangled his nose in and hoped that he got sore. And the order is changing around so quickly. I cannot even keep up. So, Hamilton is P4. Who would have thought that on lap 34 now out of 61? About to be lap 35 though, I think. Or it's no, it's currently lap 34. They've just crossed the line. Giovinazzi stays out. He's P5 at the moment. Bottas is 6th. Bottas is 5th now. Bottas 5th. I might as well just put...
Bottas went off. He went deep there. And now everyone else is queuing up behind Giovinazzi. Albon, not Verstappen, is ducking and diving everywhere. Trying to go around the outside. Turn 5 is Albon. Of course, that's not going to work there. But Albon with the switchback, which his teammate just did, is going to get past Antonio Giovinazzi. And up into P6 is Alexander Albon and Ricciardo looking for the move on Giovinazzi up the inside. And there's a little bit of rear-to-rear contact there between the two as now Hulkenberg looking to make a move on Giovinazzi. Not quite. And now Norris that is trying to go around the outside of Hulkenberg. It's all kicking off in the midfield here. And Hulkenberg's out of shape. He's got to go around the outside of Antonio Giovinazzi there. What a move by Nico Hulkenberg. And Ricciardo has let everyone through.
He's got a puncture. He's got a
right rear puncture after that contact with Antonio Giovinazzi. And that is a disaster for Daniel Ricciardo. And, of course, for Giovinazzi as well. Oh, dear, as we're going to get a replay here. Ricciardo does chuck it from a little way back on Giovinazzi. He just... Oh, I thought he left... Oh. That's a tough one there. I thought that he gave Giovinazzi enough room there. And then just on the outside, they clipped.
I'm going to say racing incident. I think Antonio could have turned out of that one, and Ricciardo maybe could have left more space, but only small space. It was very close. I'm going to say racing incident on that one.
Yeah, nothing more than that, that's for sure. That is just a racing incident.
That's a shame, though, for Giovinazzi, because he was running well. I think Giovinazzi should pit now. Yes, he does. So Antonio's in the pits. Magnussen now up to 9th. Raikkonen's up to 10th, and all over the back of Magnussen. This race, I don't even know what's going on anymore. I don't know who's in what net position or whatever's going on. Raikkonen is up to 10th. Perez is 11th. I think Giovinazzi, through staying out, is going to come out. Yeah, he does look. He's behind Stroll and Gasly. So it's not quite worked out as what tyres are going to put on hard tyres. Good race. I think Antonio's gotten lucky there. I think that's just, that's just the way it works. And here comes Ricciardo. The pace Ricciardo's had this weekend, if he had just had some luck, he'd be up there fighting away with Albon, I'm pretty sure. But that is such hard luck, honestly. As he now comes out the pits on hard tyres. So, Perez 11th, Kvyat 12th. Stroll is up to 13th, and Stroll is catching Kvyat quite quickly. Not massively, but quickly. Gasly is 14th. Antonio Giovinazzi is 15th. 16th is Russell, who pitted on lap 1. Grosjean, who is seemingly fighting with Williams for the rest of his entire Formula 1 career, as yellow flag in sector 2. Oh, that's a safety car. That's Russell. Russell's in the wall at exit of turn 8, I believe. Lap 36 out of 61. That's a safety car, surely. Here we go. Grosjean and Russell and... Oh, Romain Grosjean. What is wrong with you? Oh, Romain Grosjean.
Well, Gunter Steiner was saying during the FIA team principal press conference that if anyone has some advice on how to address Roman's weaknesses, well, I think everyone should give Gunter Steiner a call and yeah, what is going on with Romain Grosjean?
Russell was clearly ahead and he just spun him into the wall. That's so stupid. So stupid by Roman. And, well, Carlos Sainz is not last anymore as a first. That's got to be a safety car because the cars get... Yeah, look how close the cars get. That's got to be a safety car to clear that car. So Russell is the first retirement of the race. And yeah, safety car. Full on safety car. That is going to massively change the complexion of the race now, Nib, because those midfield runners who ran long now have fresh tyres, don't they?
They do, and that's super unfortunate timing that Giovinazzi and Ricciardo had just pitted, because of course if they had stayed out a little bit longer, that would have been even better for them. But now, of course, at the front of the race, that gap that Leclerc and Vettel had between each other, which was about 3.5 seconds, Leclerc really closed down the last couple of laps, is now going to be condensed to about a second or so. As we're seeing the replays here of George Russell and Romain Grosjean. Oh, dearie me. That is absolutely horrendous. Horrendous.
Oh. He was never going around the outside. You can't go around the outside of that corner unless you accept you're going to hit the wall or hit someone. You're not going to go around the outside there. But Roman, as ever, does before he thinks and puts someone in the wall. And that right there is exactly why people were questioning why he is in the Haas for 2020. Because that is just stupid. As Hulkenberg pits, great timing for him. 24 laps to go, and now he can put on a set of mediums. Here we go. Fresh set of mediums as well. Watch out for Nico Hulkenberg. He will be near the back, but he's going to be competitive for sure. So that puts Norris into 7th. Magnussen is 8th. By the way, this is good news for Carlos Sainz because now he can actually race people. Raikkonen is 9th in the most unspectacular top 10 so far. But that's just Kimi Raikkonen all over. He just somehow ends up in the top 10. Stroll is 11th. Stroll is the man to watch out for as Carlos Sainz pits for fresh mediums. Yes, Stroll is the man to watch out for because he is the first runner out of those runners that ran long in the field. And then behind him, you've got Gasly, who also ran long. Hulkenberg ran long. Giovinazzi and Ricciardo 15th and 16th as well. So definitely watch out for those not 6 drivers, 5 drivers. And you know what, 6 drivers, because Carlos Sainz will be nice and quick as well. Right, so Stroll is 11th. Gasly is 12th. 13th is Nico Hulkenberg. Daniel Kvyat's 14th. Daniel pits so early on, he's going to be under threat. You might as well pit Daniel because he's got nothing really to fight with. The Kvyat's 14th, and it's Giovinazzi, Ricciardo, Kubica, Grosjean, Sainz, and Russell. The man on your screen, by the way, right now, Kevin Magnussen, currently P8 on lap, 38? Who would have thought that Haas would be in the top 10 this late on in the race? I don't think anyone would have thought that. And whilst we have a safety car, let me now explain to you, or not explain, but just quickly plug the channel, because we do consistently, every race weekend, a race watch-along, a practice 2 watch-along, and of course a qualifying watch-along for every race weekend in 2019, and hopefully we'll be doing the same for 2020 as well. So don't forget to subscribe for those consistent watch-alongs every race weekend. Bottom right of the screen, you can do it right there to keep up to date with what I do. Or subscribe on my homepage and hit the notifications button. Also, smash that like button if you want to see this content continue and help out the channel. But now that the running order is swinging around to the front, let me read out the order on lap 38 out of 61 as we are under a safety car. So it is Sebastian Vettel leading. From Charles Leclerc second, Max Verstappen is third, Lewis Hamilton is fourth, Valtteri Bottas fifth, Alex Albon sixth, Lando Norris is seventh, Kevin Magnussen is eighth, Kimi Raikkonen ninth, Sergio Perez is 10th, P11 Lance Stroll, P12 Pierre Gasly, P13 Nico Hulkenberg, P14 Daniel Kvyat, 15th is Antonio Giovinazzi, 16th Daniel Ricciardo, 17th Robert Kubica, 18th is Roman Grosjean, 19th is Carlos Sainz, who is last of all the runners, and your only retirement and that is causing the safety car is George Russell in the Williams. So there you go. And well, who would have thought 38 laps in to this race a few days ago that Ferrari would have a 1-2? Who would have thought that? This race is surprising in all kinds of ways. As they're currently warming up their tyres, and I don't think the safety car is going to come in for at least another lap because they need to clear away that car of Russell. But Nib, what are you watching out for once the safety car comes in?
Well, I'm watching out to see if Charles Leclerc it gets very aggressive on Sebastian Vettel, because Leclerc has just made his feelings known that he's well, a tiny bit unhappy. And if I was Charles Leclerc, I would be as well, because if you are the lead driver in the team, you should be getting preference and you should be getting to pit first. And they didn't do that for the second time in 3 races now. Vettel pitted first, and this time he's undercut him here. And because of the traffic, they're not going to let Vettel back through, that's for sure. And they certainly didn't, nor should they, to be perfectly honest. And now I'm sure that Leclerc is going to be looking to get past Vettel. So that is what I'm certainly looking out for. And of course, the midfield runners who are on fresher tyres coming through and perhaps giving threat to Albon and maybe Bottas and Hamilton. Who knows what can go on in the last remaining laps here. As we're just about getting George Russell's car clear. But what are you looking out for here, Chaz?
I'm looking for Stroll, Gasly, Hulkenberg, Giovinazzi and Ricciardo because, as you said a moment ago, they pitted a lot later than those other cars. And I think, considering that this race, the midfield has been very quick, I think they're definitely drivers to look out for, because if they can get their way through the field quickly, you never know, as you said, they could get after Albon. And if there's a crash up ahead, you just don't know. And one thing I will say is I think Perez on the restart has to let Stroll through, because Stroll could end up finishing 7th or 6th, honestly. So I think Stroll should be let through by Perez. And Gasly also looking strong as well. Hulkenberg, probably the most to look out for in those drivers that just pitted, because he's the last one to pit. And he's on the medium tyres. Those other ones who have pitted late on are on the hard. So Hulkenberg will be very quick in a Renault car that is probably one of the quickest in the midfield. As the safety car is still out on lap 39 out of 61. Hopefully it'll be coming in a moment, because I want to get this race underway and see for the last 22 laps or 21 laps what is going to happen in what has been an eventful Singapore Grand Prix. And race control saying Carlos Sainz may now overtake, because of course he is a lap down. So that will bring Carlos Sainz back into play, because Carlos, I think, is the quickest runner from the midfield. So if he can get back into play, he might get into the points yet. Who knows?
He does have fresh tyres, does Carlos.
Exactly.
But just looking with how many laps we have here, I think we might run to the 2-hour time limit just with this safety car. As we have about 42 minutes left for the 2-hour cutoff. And how many laps? Well, lap 39 to 61. So yeah, we might just about run to the time limit here if we do have perhaps another safety car.
If we get another safety car, yeah, we'll run to the time limit. But I think if the safety car comes in at the end of this lap, I think we'll just about get the 61 laps in. But yeah, as you said, this race normally runs to the time limit every time. The race has been going for an hour and 18 minutes. So, and it takes what? About a minute and 40 at most to do a lap. And who is that? Safety car is ending. That's what it was. Safety car ending at the end of this lap. So get ready, guys. Get ready for what is going to be a very interesting, but also, especially in the midfield, considering how close the Constructors is, we are in for a critical 21 laps of Grand Prix racing for sure. And again, the order is Vettel, Leclerc, Verstappen, Hamilton, Bottas, Albon, Norris, Magnussen, Raikkonen, Perez, Stroll, Gasly, Hulkenberg, Kvyat, Giovinazzi, Ricciardo, Kubica, Grosjean, Sainz, and Russell, of course, out of the race. And Nib, as you were saying earlier with Ferrari, from a Charles Leclerc point of view, he will be disappointed, and he should be, because as you said, the lead car should get the first pit stop. But from a team point of view, you have to say Ferrari have worked wonders here because they got 1-2.
They have indeed, and to be honest, when they pitted Vettel first, I don't think they quite expected Vettel to undercut Charles by that much, and to get in the lead. But yep, Ferrari have done well with the strategy once again. As I said to you just before we went on air, that Ferrari for the last couple of races have actually done pretty well. So but let's see if Leclerc gets a bit aggressive. Vettel has been told if there is some battling to leave some space. So this is certainly going to be a spicy ending of the race.
Absolutely. If I was Ferrari, to be honest, I'd tell them not to race at all because this is a critical race for them to get a 1-2 because they are still fighting Red Bull in the Constructors. And if they get a 1-2 here, I think that pretty much seals Ferrari's P2 in the Constructors. That's a great photograph for the cameraman there. The car's literally right next to him. And here we go then through 20 and 20.
Once qualifying the other day.
Here we go. And the race is back underway. Sebastian Vettel, as he normally does, leads the field. An absolute astray, leading at the front of the pack. Vettel leads on lap 41 from Leclerc, Verstappen, Hamilton. Loads of drivers in the background racing about, warming their tyres. Hamilton all over the back of Verstappen. I'm sure Hamilton will have his power unit turned up. And remember though, Nib, Lewis is on a lot fresher tyres. So if he can pass Verstappen, he might be able to take the fight to Ferrari. But he has to pass Verstappen here. As Bottas is 5th. And in the background, I think there is a Haas maybe going wheel to wheel. I'm not sure. No, there isn't. There is actually another car there. There it is. It's Gasly. Right round the outside of Stroll. On the mediums, contact. Great racing. Gasly down the inside. And he's up to P11. Where was this Pierre Gasly? At Red Bull. As he now holds off Stroll. And I didn't know Gasly. Of course, he started on the hard compound. So, of course, he's on the mediums. The Gasly up to P11. And Stroll is 12th. Now, as Vettel continues to lead from Leclerc. And once the DRS becomes activated, then you will start to see those fresher tired runners come through. As we got there racing Hulkenberg and Stroll. Stroll defends the inside into turn 14. Hulkenberg will get the switch back and Hulkenberg gets the move done. Great move, vital move for Nico Hulkenberg, who is now P12 and in probably the quickest car of the runners who have pitted late on. And, oh no, Stroll's got a puncture.
He ran over some debris.
And, oh, such a he's got side pod damage as well, I think. I may have hit the wall, I'm not sure. But Stroll is basically, not literally, but basically out of this race. What a shame, he was running so well. And he's...
Sorry, I laughed because it took Crofty about 3 corners to realise he had a puncture.
That's the normal case of Crofty, but oh, that's such a shame. He was running so well, and here we go then. So, right, there you go then. It's Gasly's hit. Yeah, that is 2 hits. So, Was it that
Yeah,
tyre
but
though?
no, there was some debris on the track that he went over and it sparked immediately. And that's just, he got the puncture immediately from that. We'll have to see the replay. I noticed it immediately. It was just the left-hander before the tunnel. There was some debris on the track. The car sparked and he got a puncture.
And that, again, is such a shame. Stroll running so well. And there you go. So, Stroll down to 19th position as Lewis Hamilton's dropped off quite a bit from Max Verstappen. Where is the Mercedes pace? I've been saying this all weekend. Where is the pace gone? As now Gasly's on a medium tyre all over Perez, who pitted about 30 laps ago for hard tyres. So this should not be a fight, really. Gasly should pass Perez with ease. As under investigation is Grosjean and Russell. That's got to be a penalty for Grosjean for causing an unnecessary collision. And yet Gasly has got to pass Perez at the end of the DRS straight going down to turn 7, because he can get after the rest of the midfield here, as Norris is 7th. And there you go. Here comes Gasly. Hulkenberg we're now on board with, getting a run on... Is it raining? Or is that just a dirty visor? I'm not sure. It looks like it was
just a dirty visor.
I was going to say, if it's raining, that just makes it even better. As Gasly, now, can he get the exit right? I think he got it right. Gasly now will close on Perez, but he can't close enough. Gasly has to defend because Hulkenberg's coming. Switch back for Hulkenberg. Can he get the move done on Pierre Gasly? Hulkenberg round the outside, but he's smart enough, unlike Romain Grosjean, to not go round the outside. But we'll go around the outside for turn 9. Will he? No, Gasly pushes him out. And Hulkenberg remains in P12. This is costing these runners, getting after the other runners ahead of them in the midfield. But Hulkenberg is in the quickest car out of that train that is on the fresher compounds, as Perez is really slow. Perez already 2 seconds behind Kimi Raikkonen, and Perez has got a problem. Perez is out. Sergio Perez is out of the race. What a disaster for Racing Point. Oh my goodness. So that does put Gasly into the top 10. I don't even know what happened to Perez. He exited the corner and nothing happened.
We might have another virtual or another safety car here, because he's parked in the middle of the bridge there. So
we'll have to see.
Might be a safety car, a virtual safety car to remove the car.
Yeah, we'll have to see. Now there's a yellow flag for that car. Will there be a safety car or virtual safety car? We'll have to see. But that promotes Kvyat to 12th. Gasly's now in 10th. Ricciardo's up to 14th. Grosjean is 15th. Robert Kubica is in 16th place. By the way, we are on lap 45, I think. No, lap 44 out of 61. And Perez is out of the Singapore Grand Prix. Such a shame for Racing Point. I think they were in for points there, but that last 2 or 3 laps was a complete disaster for them. Carlos Sainz, 17th. Stroll is 18th. Safety car. Another safety car. So that will just neutralise the field again. So there you go. Safety car. Lap 44 out of 61. And, well, there was a safety car once there before for a similar incident where a car was parked on this straight, the 3rd DRS straight. So it was always going to happen. And yet, Perez, the 2nd retirement of this race. And we have, what, 17 laps to go, I think. Yeah, lap 40. It's about to be lap 45 out of 61. So, the safety car I don't think will be out for very long, because all they've got to do is get the Racing Point on the other side of the barrier and they can get going again. But takes us Well, gives us time to cool off a bit. But what do you think of the race so far, Nib?
Well, Sport Pezza Racing Point F1 team have just tweeted out this ... has not gone well. So, a pretty funny tweet there by Racing Point. But you know, I think that we just did see that the Ferraris have the pace advantage on everyone at the moment. They just pulled out quite a comfortable gap to Max Verstappen and the Mercedes in that little stint after that, after the first safety car period. So I'm honestly expecting to see the same. And Leclerc was bubbling in between about seven tenths to a second behind. Um, so can Leclerc get closer? As now we're going to watch Sergio Perez again to see exactly what's happened here. As he's downshifting second gear.
I think when he came into that corner, he knew something was wrong. Normally, as a driver, they say that you can feel something going wrong long before it
Yeah.
happens. So I think he knew going into turn 13 and through the exit, his car was broke.
Yeah, I went silent because I had the team radio, but there was actually nothing said on the team radio at all. So, um, yeah, disappointing there for Sergio Perez.
Absolutely. That's 2 Singapore Grand Prix in a row of an absolute disaster. Lance Stroll is in the pits. Don't tell me this is another retirement. No, it's a pit stop. I'm assuming for soft tyres. Well, you put soft tyres on. He's now putting another set of soft tyres on. Well, that's good for Stroll though that the safety cars come out because there's 15, 16 laps left. Well, 30 minutes left. I think, as you said, Nib, we're going to be time limited now. He does have a chance to still come through and get near the points on soft tyres, but he's got to make his way through the pack quickly on that soft tyre. He might, if he gets to the points, he might end up with the fastest lap and get a fastest lap point, but that'll be a wonderful drive from there, which is currently 18th and last of all the runners. As Vettel and Leclerc at the front of the pack, and the safety car, I think, will be coming in probably this time next lap, as we're at the end of lap 45.
As Lance Stroll's puncture was caused by him hitting the wall at turn 17.
I thought he hit the wall because there was side pod damage. I'm sure I saw it on the left hand side. He had some side pod damage.
Yeah, on the left hand side he hit the wall. There was sparking, which I did see, but yeah, he hit the wall at turn 17.
Right, well there you go. That's why own driver mistake, you have to say.
As sorry, I'm just getting my good fill off Twitter here of stuff that we've missed here. As George Russell on the team radio after the contact with Roman Grosjean, he said, "I shouldn't be surprised." And yeah, indeed, you shouldn't. We're certainly not surprised, and it's rather unfortunate for the 19 other drivers out there.
Yeah, well, normally Roman Grosjean is causing a yellow flag. Normally the Haas car itself causes a yellow flag, but yeah, it is not a surprise. It's a shame for Russell because with the safety car, the safety car wouldn't have been caused if it wasn't for Grosjean, but if there was a safety car before the end, Russell might have been able to fight around 15th, 14th place, but Grosjean ended that pretty quickly as Sebastian Vettel warming up his tyres. Great to see this visor cam that used to be in Formula 1 around 2003, I remember. The early to mid 2000s, but then they got rid of it and now thankfully brought it back again because it is great. As surely the safety car will be coming in at the end of this lap unless the car has not been cleared away yet. As I think it's going to stay out for another lap because they would have said by now, surely, that it will be coming in. And I can't see if Perez's car is still there. I don't think it is still there. No, I don't think it is there anymore. So should be next lap then. Should be the next lap where we get the safety car in. And apparently, Nib, Leclerc is very angry.
Yes, I was just tuning into that team radio right there. Ferrari been telling him to manage the power unit and to finish 1-2, and he's like, yes, I want to finish 1-2, but just not in this order. Um, and yeah, Charles certainly isn't happy. He's like, yeah, I'll manage the power unit, and I wouldn't do anything stupid. Those were his words. So yeah, Charles certainly isn't a happy chappy.
I can understand why, from his personal point of view, but from a team point of view, you have to say what Ferrari have done has worked out wonderfully. So I don't think he can really complain. At the end of the day, the team matters more, and it's not like Charles Leclerc is competing for a world championship this season. So I think hopefully he does what the team tells him to do, and yeah, gets the 1-2 for the team, because that'd be vital for them again in their fight for P2 in the constructors with Red Bull Racing. As surely we'll see in a moment if the safety car is going to come in at the end of this lap. As we're now lap 47 out of 61. Still 14 laps to go. And about 25 minutes. And yeah, safety car coming into this lap. 25 minutes left in the actual race in terms of the time limit. Hamilton, almost hit Verstappen. That's it can happen very easily. And look at that, Verstappen even having a look up the inside of Leclerc. Very easy thing to do, because you're so used to going at such speed that when a car slows down, it's very easy to do. Right, I'm just trying to make sure the order is correct. And yes, it is. So, once the safety car comes in, the order will be Vettel leading, Leclerc second, and then Verstappen, Hamilton, Bottas, Albon, Norris, Magnussen, Raikkonen, Gasly. That's the top 10. And then finishing the race at the moment, but not in the points, Hulkenberg, Kvyat, Giovinazzi, Ricciardo. And then I think it's Grosjean, Kubica, Sainz, Stroll. And then the two retirements are Perez and Russell. So there you go. And they are now, as the safety car is now trying to get back to the pits, they now just about enter the final sector of the lap, warming their tyres up. And this is really the final sector of the Grand Prix. And who will come out on top? It should be Ferrari, but you never know what could happen. Leclerc might get a bit aggressive to go for the win. And anything else could happen. We'll see. As Sebastian Vettel, who is so good at leading a pack away for the first couple laps, I'm sure we'll do it once again. He's so good at leading the pack away at the end of a safety car period, as Sebastian Vettel now comes through turn 19 with Leclerc, and Vettel will get on with it in just a moment. He gets on with it, I think, goes through turn 20, and he's still going very slowly. And now he gets on with it through turn 21. But Leclerc, I think we'll get a run on him, possibly. Here we go. Restart of the race. It's lap 48 out of 61. It's still a Ferrari 1-2. Vettel leading Leclerc from Verstappen. And then Hamilton and Bottas.
Not Sebastian Vettel's best getaway, that's for sure. Usually, there's been on occasions where he's got a 1.5 second advantage, but it's only half a second. This is certainly going to be Charles Leclerc's best chance, perhaps, to get past as Hamilton. Also trying to pressurize Verstappen as they come through turn 5 now. We're just looking at Lewis Hamilton for whatever reason. Let's see if there's any action behind. I think that's Nico Hulkenberg a little bit close to Kimi Raikkonen in the background as Gasly. Did he get past Raikkonen there? I'm not too sure. Yep, as Hulkenberg, as I just said, up past Kimi Raikkonen for P10. As Magnussen under pressure now from Gasly as well. It's all going on here as Kevin Magnussen really seems to be struggling here at the safety car restart. He's got Gasly all over the back of him, trying to feint as we've got Ricciardo and Kvyat side by side.
Oh, they just made it. Grosjean now going side by side with Ricciardo.
Oh, here we go. Here we go.
Oh, contact. Slight contact.
Oh, that was better than I expected, but that was absolutely very well done by Ricciardo as Grosjean goes up the inside. Oh, was that? That wasn't Grosjean.
Magnussen.
Gasly. That was Gasly getting past Magnussen, actually, Fantastic move. There's Ricardo's under pressure from Sainz now. And Sainz goes up the inside of Ricardo. It's all kicking off here. And he's now under pressure from Lance Stroll. That was a fantastic move by Pierre Gasly on Kevin Magnussen. And Nico Hulkenberg also managed to get up into P9 from that. But Ricardo's had a tough couple of laps here, or tough couple of corners there, as he was up in P14 now, all the way down in P16 after a couple of corners. But Sebastian Vettel leads by 9/10 of a second as now Antonio Giovinazzi gets past his teammate on the straight, as Kimi Raikkonen's had a shocking safety car restart here. That's for sure.
I think Raikkonen let him through there, but yeah, you're right. He did have a shocking restart. He lost 2 places on that first lap. Back under the safety cars, Giovinazzi back up to P11, and Raikkonen is down to 12th. There's Raikkonen defending from Kvyat for P12. Kvyat on soft tyres. And Kvyat trying to go right around the outside. And down the inside. Oh, thankfully there was no contact there. And now Kvyat sits in behind. But it is still Vettel, Leclerc, Verstappen, Hamilton, Bottas, Albon, Norris. Gasly is now 8th and closing a lot on Norris. Gasly could get after Albon, I think, as here's a replay of Gasly. Great move. Magnussen is on, I think, not only warm rubber, but cold rubber at the moment. Gasly just sails around the outside. And by the way, this is very important for the constructors, remember, because Toro Rosso are not that far behind Renault. And Toro Rosso at the moment are outscoring Renault in this race. And Kvyat is on soft tyres, and I'm sure he'll get his way up the field. So looking good for Toro Rosso at the moment. Gasly continues to close on Norris. Ahead, Giovinazzi now closing on K-Mag, as Vettel now on lap 50 out of 61. Vettel only a second, or now 9/10 clear of Leclerc, as DRS now enabled. And Kvyat still pressurising Raikkonen for all he's worth. I think, oh, Kvyat, Jean-Eric Verne style, you absolute idiot. And Kimi Raikkonen is out of the race. That literally, as soon as he did that, I was having flashbacks of Jean-Eric Verne in 2014. And, oh dear. And now Carlos Sainz is up to 13th. Grosjean is up to 12th.
Now Sainz got up to 13th.
He's, well, remember, he in qualifying, he was the fastest midfield runner, so this is absolutely...
Yeah, but he was behind Ricardo.
And here we go, and...
I was in front of Ricardo at that stage, my bad.
How... Was he too far back?
Yeah, way too far back.
Wasn't it Kimi Raikkonen on the end of that Verne dive bomb as well back in 2014? I think it was.
I can't quite remember...
As
Kvyat's complaining that he turned in on right as he was turned in on. No, Daniel.
Safety car.
No, Daniel.
Safety car.
That is Kimi's corner all day long.
You can't dive bomb from miles back and then say it's your corner when he starts turning in. That's crazy. Safety car is out on lap 50 out of 61, and the Kimi Raikkonen is out again of a race. That's 3 consecutive non-points finishes, and yeah, no luck for Kimi. And I think Kvyat's probably going to have to pit again to check his car, to be honest, because that was a heavy hit. So Sainz, yeah, 13th. Carlos Sainz could end up in the points yet. Kvyat is 15th for now. And then Lance Stroll is in 16th. Robert Kubica is still hanging on in 17th place. And yeah, Kimi Raikkonen is officially out of the 2019 Singapore Grand Prix. And yet, still the same order. The top 7 is the same as it was under the last safety car. The only difference is that Gasly is now 8th. Hulkenberg 9th, and then Magnussen is 10th. Great news for Gasly and Hulkenberg, though, that we get another safety car, I think, even though we've only got 17 minutes left of this race. Because then the pack again closes up and they're on the medium tyres. And these safety cars that constantly keep coming out, means that they don't have to wear their tyres out as much. Yeah, the order, I'll read out again. It's Vettel, Leclerc, Verstappen, Hamilton, Bottas, Albon, Norris, Gasly, Hülkenberg, Magnussen. That's the top 10 with 10 laps to go, but most likely 16 minutes to go. Antonio Giovinazzi is P11. Romain Grosjean is P12. Carlos Sainz is 13th. Daniel Ricciardo 14th. 15th is Kvyat. 16th is Stroll, 17th is Kubica, and then out of the races, Raikkonen, Perez and Russell. By the way, if they start to do a countdown for the end of the race, if they officially announce it'll be a timed race, then I'll make sure to do the same on my end as well. So we can count down the rest of the race. But I think it will go to lap 59 or lap 60. I don't think a safety car in this lap. Good. Go on.
You were right. It was John-Eric Verne on Kimi Raikkonen at turn 1, but guess what? John-Eric Verne done it cleanly, and it was a fantastic move up the inside because he was quite a bit closer. And yeah, that was a bit of a mare by Daniel Kvyat. That's not gonna lie.
Yeah, that was way too far back. Way too far back. But yeah, safety car in at the end of this lap, and Vettel again warms his tyres up. Can Vettel get a better restart than he did last time, even though he did maintain the lead? And tell you, these constant restarts are not good for the cars, because that's sometimes when issues can occur with the power units and gearboxes. And Vettel already getting on with it, and he's already pulling away. Sebastian Vettel, green flag racing, and Sebastian Vettel leads the pack away by over a second already. So now we're on lap 52 out of 61. Vettel leads from Leclerc, Verstappen, Hamilton, Bottas, Albon, Norris, Gasly, Hülkenberg, Magnussen, Giovinazzi, Grosjean, Sainz, Ricciardo, Kvyat, Stroll, Kubica. Let's see if anyone is going to get a run. Hamilton looks very close to Max Verstappen. Can Hamilton get some sort of a run that can put him in a podium position? Let's see. Surely they're going to turn it up to have a go. I don't think it's close enough, though. No, he's not. Not close enough to go for a move, as Gasly is about 0.4 of a second behind Norris. So Gasly getting after the McLaren quickly. And you can see there on the TV, Norris. And Giovinazzi passes Magnussen, look. And Grosjean now trying to pass Magnussen. Grosjean is on soft tyres. That's why he's so quick. And Carlos Sainz up the inside to turn 10. Oh, he's not going to go for it. Thank God. That would have been a big crash. And Ricciardo now gets right in behind Carlos Sainz. So Giovinazzi into the top 10. And you know what? He deserves it because he's drove so well today, Antonio. Kevin Magnussen now up to P11. And incident between Raikkonen and Kvyat investigated after the race, and Magnussen has no tyres at all. And Carlos Sainz has sailed completely round the outside into turn 15, and Magnussen is basically done in this race because he has no tyres left. Ricciardo goes down the inside at turn 17, I believe, or no, turn 18.
18, yep.
So yeah, and look at Magnussen. He cannot even drive the car anymore. It's all over the place. So, let me just update the order. So, it's Grosjean in P11. Carlos Sainz. And by the way, Grosjean's in a strong position. He's on soft tyres. Grosjean 11th. Sainz 12th. Daniel Ricciardo is up to 13th now after that puncture, of course, earlier on. Kevin Magnussen is in 14th. And then it's Kvyat, Stroll, Kubica. So Magnussen, yeah, massively under pressure at the moment on lap 53 out of 61. And Kvyat, don't crash again. He doesn't. But he has to get past Magnussen if he has any possible chance of a points finish. And Stroll right behind Kvyat in a desperate fight over 14th place in this Grand Prix. And Stroll gets a great run on Kvyat. Will Stroll go for the move down at turn 10? Kvyat defends the inside very late, but stays ahead. Kvyat now goes wide. I think Kvyat might have some damage, to be honest, because he's not really doing that well at the moment. on the soft tyres. And Stroll now positions his car to switch back on Kvyat. And yes, Stroll should get a good run here. Will he be able to go down the inside? Oh, does he launch it? No, he doesn't. He ducks out at the last minute, but he will get a great run out of the corner. But Kvyat stays ahead as Robert Kubica there lurking in the background, hoping for more crashes. Gasly still all over the back of Norris, only 0.6 of a second behind, I believe. We're now 0.7 of a second. And the top 6 are, well, all stationary. They're not really moving around. And now the DRS is enabled. Pierre Gasly can get after Lando Norris on the fresher medium tyres as Giovinazzi is maintaining P10, Grosjean there in P11, and I think the field for the moment has settled down a bit, but Gasly now gets DRS on Norris. Can Gasly finish at the front of the midfield and what would be a critical result for Toro Rosso as he comes through turn 7? And no, not close enough, of course. Vettel still leading by a second from Leclerc. Verstappen third, who is 2.5 seconds off the lead, is Max Verstappen. And yeah, Norris not really holding them up, but definitely Gasly can go quicker. And Magnussen, Stroll and Kvyat going at it again. Stroll right round the outside at turn 9. Great move by Stroll. I know it's only for 15th, but it's a great move. And now has to get past Magnussen, who, look how far behind Magnussen is. Ricciardo already near. He's already 7 seconds behind in 2 laps. Jesus Christ. He has no pace. Of course, hard tyres, cold tyres. That's what happens. And Stroll is just driving round him. There you go. Exit of 14 into 15. And Stroll is up to 14th. But because Magnussen held him up so long, Stroll is now nowhere near getting near the points, as Kvyat will now get after Kevin Magnussen. Magnussen now in 15th. But if there's one more retirement in the top 10, Haas will get a point with Romain Grosjean. And here's a replay. Stroll on 2 compound softer tyres and fresher tyres, and it's not even a race. As Leclerc, still a second behind, on now lap 55 out of 61. Hamilton is still sticking to Verstappen's coattails. So is Gasly to Norris, but at the moment, no one really moving around in the field. And I just think that it might end this way. Do you think that's the case, Nib?
Yeah, more than likely. No one's tyres are going to go off the cliff. It's going to take something pretty weird and unusual for any changes of positions, certainly in the top 6 at the moment.
Yeah, as you said that, there was a position change, but it was not in the top 6. It was in 15th for Kvyat getting past Magnussen. And I tell you what, I think Kubica is going to finish ahead of Magnussen. And here we go, Kvyat round the outside at turn 7, and that is simple. It's like an F1 car passing an F2 car. As the Ferrari still 1 and 2 at the front of the field. And yeah, no one is really getting after anyone else. Gasly is, as Sebastian Vettel does a new fastest lap, a 1:44.9. That's nowhere near the lap record. The lap record was last year for Magnussen on a 41.6, I believe. It's a completely different race, of course.
That's because he did set on some, he did strap on some super soft, ultra duper super soft, whatever they were called last year, tyres. I think on the second to last lap, and set the fastest lap of the Grand Prix like that. So I think it's going to be something special to break that fastest lap record. But must say Hamilton a little bit closer to Verstappen, but it was a much better safety car restart by Sebastian Vettel. Certainly, he caught everyone off guard. The previous safety car restart, he went super slow and only went out of the exit of the second to last corner. but he went a lot earlier this time and he caught everyone by surprise. Something you'd expect to see by Sebastian Vettel. He certainly did that many, many times back in his Red Bull days. As I was getting all excited, all safety car from here we go, Mark Webber's chance, and the gap's on 0.2 seconds already. So yeah, it was a good start by Vettel, and now he looks like he's controlling the lead. The front is 1.5 seconds, with Verstappen a further 1.5 seconds behind Leclerc, and then Hamilton about a second and a bit behind Verstappen, and much the same for Bottas, as Albon is actually quite a ways off, and Lando Norris is about 2 seconds away from Alexander Albon, as it looks like if there is going to be any action remaining, that it's going to be with Lando Norris, Pierre Gasly, and Nico Hulkenberg.
Absolutely. As we are now 5 laps to go. That's including, of course, the final lap. And I think they're going to let the race just go to the end, even if it goes over the 2-hour time limit. Oh no, 10 minutes to go. There you go. So they just said 10 minutes to go. So we should get the rest of the laps in. As Gasly now dropping off Norris. Gasly about a second behind. Hulkenberg is closer to Gasly than Gasly is to Norris. Giovinazzi is slowly closing up on that pack. Grosjean is not really going anywhere and is actually falling back into the clutches of Carlos Sainz, as Kevin Magnussen is pitted in the Haas. Probably going to go for another fastest lap like they did last year. So Robert Kubica is up to 16th. And yeah, Magnussen putting on soft tyres. And let's see if he can break the lap record of, I think it was a 41.6. I'm not sure the exact digits, but I think it was a 41.6. As Vettel now 2 seconds clear. And by the way, if Sebastian Vettel does win, it'll be his first win in 13 months in Formula One. Very long time considering the car that he has been driving in the last 13 months. But he, at the moment, will get his first win in or since the 2018 Belgian Grand Prix. And you have to say, even though you could say Ferrari took the race away from Charles Leclerc, Sebastian does another new fastest lap of 44.8. Sebastian, he got the job done with the undercut. He really got the job done and has controlled the race and got the overtakes done on the other slower midfield cars. And he's really done the job so far. As we're now on lap 58 out of 61. And yeah, the gaps. The closest fight is for P7 between Norris, Gasly and Hulkenberg. But none of them are really getting close to one another. But of course, we'll keep our eyes on it to see. Daniel Kvyat has just done a fastest lap. I don't know what it was though. I didn't quite see it.
It was a one. I don't actually know either. I thought it was a 144, but it certainly couldn't have been a 140. It might have been a 144. I'm not too sure.
There you go.
But here we go. 144.3. There we go. It was indeed. But let's see if Kevin Magnussen can break his own fastest lap record, of course, because he was the one who did set it this time last year. As Leclerc actually struggled quite a bit there, as Verstappen is just about a second behind.
He is. That was very unusual. He had tons of understeer in that corner. And yeah, Verstappen is about 1.2 seconds behind. I don't think he'll be contended Leclerc for second unless his tyres completely go off, which I don't think will happen. But Hamilton behind Verstappen, trying to get through for a podium. You have to say Mercedes have completely thrown away this race. If they were trying the undercut like Vettel did, I think Hamilton probably wins this race. But they completely bottled the strategy as Valtteri Bottas does a new fastest lap of 43.5. That's a very fast lap. Even though he's, 2.5 seconds down. He probably did that on purpose. Dropped back to do a fastest lap to get a point. An extra point. And at the moment, he's only losing 1 point to Hamilton in the championship. As Lewis Hamilton, getting a bit of a run on Max Verstappen. It's close. If Hamilton's another quarter of a second closer, I reckon Hamilton can go for it. And we are now lap 59 out of 61. And as long as Hamilton can get an exit, a good exit off one of the corners onto a DRS straight, he might be able to have a go. And this is critical, of course, for Hamilton, that he gets past because he wants a podium. And is he close enough at the moment? Not really to get a move done unless Verstappen spins his rear tyres up a lot here. He does not. And no, Hamilton not close enough at the moment. But if he does get a good run through the first sector, he might be able to at least force Max Verstappen to go defensive. And Kevin Magnussen does a new fastest lap of a 42.3. So that's about 7/10 slower than the lap record. That by Magnussen. And, well, that'll be his fastest lap then, because he won't go any faster than that. As Hamilton closing on Verstappen. Vettel still leading Leclerc. As now we start lap 60 out of 61. We're on the penultimate lap of the 2019 Singapore Grand Prix. And it is surely going to be a Ferrari 1-2. But who will finish in third? Will it be Lewis Hamilton or will it be Max Verstappen finishing in third? Hamilton giving it everything to get that podium in Singapore. He's been on the podium at this race almost every year. But he's not close enough now on the penultimate lap. So he only has one more chance down this straight going down to turn 7 to get third in this race. Nib, before we come to the end of the race, what do you think then about Sebastian Vettel's drive?
Well, of course, even though, questionable call by Ferrari to pit him first, he did the job. Sebastian Vettel, with a tremendous undercut on Sebastian Vettel, he did very well getting through the traffic and has looked comfortable in, what was this, after the third safety car. He set the fastest lap of the race, well, a couple of times. And yeah, he's doing a fantastic job, has Seb, and arguably deserves the win for what is going to be a Ferrari 1-2.
Absolutely. And even though Ferrari did favour him on the strategy, he still had to get the overtakes done, get the, the outlap from his pit stop correct. So I think, does he deserve to win? That's an argument for another day. But he definitely deserves to be on the podium. No doubt about that whatsoever. As we now start the final lap of the Singapore Grand Prix. And it is still Vettel leading from Leclerc second, Max Verstappen third, Lewis Hamilton is fourth, Valtteri Bottas is fifth, Albon is sixth, Norris is seventh, Gasly is eighth, Hulkenberg ninth, Giovinazzi is going to score a point in 10th. Grosjean is currently holding up Carlos Sainz in P11 and P12. Ricciardo 13th, could have been so much more for Ricciardo. And then Kvyat, and then it's Stroll, Kvyat, Kubica. Magnussen, Hamilton having a look at Verstappen down to turn 7. Verstappen, though, does not give in to that little feint to the inside. But Hamilton, I'm sure on this lap, will have everything turned up to the absolute maximum, no pun intended. As Hamilton, down to turn 10, he looks very close, but where can he overtake? I'm not sure if he can overtake coming to the end of this Grand Prix. This is his final chance here between turn 13 and turn 14, and Max Verstappen has got a very good exit, and I think Hamilton's got it. As Ricciardo has passed Sainz somehow, and Hamilton, as Sainz has passed Ricciardo again. I don't know what's going on, but Grosjean, Sainz, Ricciardo all side by side for P11. As Hamilton trying everything to get past Verstappen, but he will not do so. As for the first time as Ricciardo drops another place, for the first time in 13 months since the 2018 Belgian Grand Prix, Sebastian Vettel wins in Singapore and is now the record holder for race victories around Marina Bay. Charles Leclerc is second. It's a Ferrari 1-2, the first 1-2 for Ferrari in just over 2 years. Max Verstappen is third. Fourth is Lewis Hamilton. Fifth is Valtteri Bottas. Sixth is Albon. Seventh, Norris. Eighth, Gasly. Ninth, Hulkenberg. 10th is Giovinazzi. 11th is Grosjean. 12th is Sainz. Stroll has passed Ricciardo on the final lap. Ricciardo 14th. Kvyat 15th. Kubica 16th. Magnussen 17th. And your retirements are Kimi Raikkonen, Sergio Perez, and George Russell. So there you go. There is your Singapore Grand Prix. And guys, for the next few minutes, let us know what you thought of that race. What would you rate out of 10? And also let us know who your driver of the day is. Nib, who would you go for driver of the day?
I am honestly not too sure. I think Antonio Giovinazzi is probably a little bit of a shout for that, but I'd probably have to give it to Sebastian Vettel. He did a fantastic job to get the undercut, even though perhaps he should not have been able to get the undercut. He still got the job done, gained, what was it, 3.5 seconds on Leclerc, come out ahead of Leclerc. You know, he went through all the traffic seamlessly, built a gap to Leclerc. Of course, that was cut with the safety cars, and then dominated after that final safety car. So for me, it's got to be Sebastian Vettel or Antonio Giovinazzi, who did have a really good race.
Yeah, no doubt about it. As the fireworks are going off, have you got a rating out of 10 also for the race?
No, I don't think I do at the moment. I'm not too sure. I might have to go and watch it back, to be perfectly honest. But who have you got for your driver of the day, and also perhaps a rating out of 10 as well?
Rating, I'll go for a 6 out of 10 at the moment, but that might change. Again, we have to watch it back and, you know, see if our opinion changes over time. And driver of the day, it is difficult, to be honest. I'm going to say Sebastian Vettel. Giovinazzi, I'd say, is a close second, but I'm going to say Sebastian Vettel because when it mattered, he did get the job done. And of course, this is his first win in, a year. So, yeah, there you go. By the way, my Vettel video earlier this week, I'm so good, aren't I, at predicting future events. Oh my god. Of course I didn't know that this was going to happen. I don't think anyone out there can say that they thought Sebastian Vettel was going to win this race, or that Ferrari were going to be on pole and get a 1-2. I don't think anyone out there can legitimately make that claim, that they thought that was honestly going to happen. But it has happened, and of course, we love surprises in Formula One. But guys, for the next,
face it, we don't think that Ferrari would have been on the podium.
Exactly.
They got 1-2.
Exactly. I thought if they got a podium, they should celebrate like it's a win, and they've won the race and finished in second. So, you know, very surprising turn of events, no doubt about that whatsoever. But guys, for the next 10 minutes, because that's how long there's left in the stream now, let us know in the live chat, what did you think of the race? What are you going to rate out of 10? And who is your driver of the day for the Singapore Grand Prix? The reason I'm only staying on for another 10 minutes is because, to be honest, we have been live for 3 hours and I am absolutely knackered after that 2-hour and 5-minute race. So, yeah, that's probably what we're going to come off in 10 minutes' time. Well, let's see what you guys have to say. Cyber Trader, terrible Merc strategy. Yep, it was. They just... I think they were hoping for a safety car. I think that's what they were trying to do, but it just didn't come off. Just didn't come off. They were hoping for luck, basically. Crystal Racing says, my prediction of Ferrari getting better in the second half of the season is coming true. Mate Alan Bruckle says 7 out of 10. Seb, driver of the day. And then says Giovinazzi for second. Astro Steve says 5 out of 10. Giovinazzi, driver of the day. Leclerc was robbed. Ruse Ruse says, I don't know why Merck is so scared of the undercut. I think what they try to do is not a bad strategy. What they try to do is run longer to have fresher tyres at the end of a Grand Prix. That's not a bad strategy, but at a street track, if you can undercut and get enough clean air, then you've got to do it, because even if you have really bad tyres, you're still going to keep in front, especially if you have good straight line speed. Let me look at some other comments here. Mr. Labman, nobody gave a penny for Seb, but he came back. Driver of the day is Seb in his opinion. Rugara says Max Verstappen. I wouldn't say Max Verstappen. I don't think Verstappen this weekend. Maybe it's the car, but he hasn't quite been at the level I was hoping and expecting for, because I was hoping it was going to be a classic duel between him and Lewis Hamilton this weekend. That's what I was expecting. But it just hasn't gone right for Verstappen. I don't know if he's not driving as well as he was earlier in the season, or if it's the Red Bull car not quite being as good. I don't know what it is, but yeah, Verstappen wasn't that great today. Matt Hilda before the next Grand Prix. Well, why are you laughing?
Turn your volume up, mate.
Yeah, that person. Matt Hilda saying, what do you say? Please fix your mics. If you can't hear us, again, I said before Nib came on, turn the volume up. It's simple. I've already done testing with the mic levels. I've tested what Nib's level was like for the Italian Grand Prix race Watchalong after we finished it. And once I turned the computer sound and video sound up, it was fine. So it's not on us. We, of course, will continue to improve the sound. But if you can't hear us and you've not got your volume turned up as much as possible, then that's not our problem. Right, let me look at some other comments here. Jose Linden, don't say that the strategy of Mercedes is terrible. Well, you have to say it did work out to be terrible. It did work out that way. Yes, if a safety car came out, it would have worked well, but still, it wasn't that great of a strategy from Mercedes. Louis Hugo says driver of the day Vettel race 8 out of 10. Nice to see the cars so close together. Let me look at the other comments here. Cybertrader, wow, they really bent Leclerc over the table. Yeah, you could say that, but Ferrari are a team. The team matters more, and they're not contending for a drivers' world championship, so they had to do it. And as you can see, the result they got was the best result possible you can get in Formula One. So I don't see from a team perspective how you can really complain. If you're a Charles Leclerc fan, of course you're going to be angry, and I completely understand. But if you're going to get a 1-2 finish, you've got to try something. And they tried it, and it worked out. So, yeah. Alan Brucal says, Kvyat's the new Vern. Mr. Labman, who got driver of the day? It was Sebastian Vettel who got driver of the day. Let me find some other comments here. Cavalier Volts, based on the circumstances, Kubica is the driver of the day. Dexter John says Vettel was second, safety car was first. And Mr. Lapman again says Kvyat will hold his name forever. Torpedo. Yeah, he did, didn't he? Torpedoed straight into the side of Kimi Raikkonen and completely ended Raikkonen's race. Raikkonen wasn't exactly on for a point, but still disappointing for Kimi. Michael Cal, Renault, who would you sack first, a Beatbull or the whole aero department? Disappointing end. I think today it wasn't really down to the car being poor. I think basically, at times they did get unlucky. They had, some contact. I think looking back, Renault will definitely be disappointed, but I think pace-wise, they had the car to finish at the front of the midfield, but they just didn't get the result. Simple as. They had the car pace-wise. They got Hulkenberg very quick today, but they just didn't get the luck that sometimes you really do need around a circuit like Singapore. But I think it's time to end the stream. And let me just get to the end here. There you go. Nib, thanks for coming on and helping commentate with me for a very long race. Just over 2 hour race. And we'll see you next time for the podcast on Tuesday.
Indeed, and of course, on that podcast, we're going to be going over these Ferrari upgrades, which of course brought them a 1-2 at Singapore. Quite tremendous upgrades that Ferrari have brought. And of course, we'll be talking about plenty of other things on that podcast, so make sure you come along and tune in when we do get that podcast uploaded. But of course, thanks for having me on, and thanks for everyone who joins in and types in the chat, and of course for everyone giving us tremendous support as usual. And I hope you have a very nice rest of your day.
Absolutely, thanks for coming on, mate. And we'll be doing the podcast on Tuesday, where what we're going to do, it's not confirmed all the topics yet, but what we're going to talk about so far is reverse grid races and Sebastian Vettel and Lewis Hamilton's reaction to that. Also, the Grosjean staying at Haas and Kubica leaving Williams. And also, as Nib said, we'll look at the new updates for the Singapore Grand Prix for Ferrari and also for Racing Point as well. But that is it for the stream. But also, just to let you guys know what's coming up between now and the practice 2 watch along for Russia. So in about 45 minutes, there'll be a race review uploaded for this Grand Prix. And then tomorrow, I'll do an incident analysis for this race. I'll look at the Raikkonen Kvyat incident, the Riccardo Giovinazzi incident. I'll look at other stuff as well on Monday at 12 p.m. UK time. And then Tuesday, podcast, 12 p.m. UK time. As I just said, we're going to look at the new upgrades, other pieces of news, stuff like that. And then on Wednesday, at 12 p.m. UK time, will be another video, and it'll be my driver rating video for this Grand Prix, where I'm going to rate the drivers based on the qualifying and race for this Grand Prix. And I'll also have another YouTuber on that video as well, a small up-and-coming YouTuber who's doing quite well. And then on Thursday at 12 p.m. UK time will be a preview for the Russian Grand Prix, and then Friday, live at 12:30 p.m. UK time, I'll be live for practice 2 for the 2019 Russian Grand Prix. So don't forget to subscribe for that content coming up. Bottom right of the screen, you can do it there. Or go to my homepage, subscribe, and hit the notifications bell. Also, hit the like button. It does help out the channel getting noticed and grow. And also, comment down below what you thought of this video, and comment down below what did you think of the 2019 Singapore Grand Prix and what happened in the Grand Prix. Don't forget to join us on Discord, link below in the description. Best place that is for notifications of my videos and streams. And also follow me on Twitter at Chaz6110. Like my Facebook at ChazHDF1 on Facebook. And check out my website and follow my website, chazahd.com. for more content like this. But guys, until my race review coming in 45 minutes, until the incident analysis tomorrow, and until the 2019 Russian Grand Prix, it has been me, ChazahD. Goodbye.